2025 was the deadliest year the mountains have seen in a decade. People went up with a dream and vanished in an instant. Rock falls, avalanches, the thin air, mistakes you don't walk away from. So, why do some make it back while others don't? What is it about this year that's been so brutal for the world of climbing? Today we're looking at stories where destiny wasn't sealed on the summit, but on the way back down, where all the experience, strength, and fame in the world couldn't save them. We're diving into the tragedies that shook the high-altitude world this past year. Our first story, Laila Peak, and the death of Laura Dahlmeier, July 28, 2025, the Karakoram Range, Pakistan. Two women are making their way up the near-vertical face of Laila Peak. The sun is relentless, the air is scorching hot, and then a sudden sharp whistle, a rock hurtling from above, impact, then silence. One of the climbers is left hanging, motionless, on the rope. Her partner screams her name, but there's no reply. The clock is ticking, but time has already run out. And that's how the story of Laura Dahlmeier ends. A two-time Olympic champion, a seven-time world champion, the woman who could have lived a life of comfort and fame, but instead chose the most dangerous mountains on Earth. Let's start from the very beginning. August 22nd, 1993. Garmisch-Partenkirchen. This isn't just any German town. It's the cradle of mountaineering and winter sports. It's the kind of place where kids grow up looking at the mountains and thinking, I want to be up there. Laura grew up in that atmosphere. Skis, altitude, adrenaline. She chose biathlon, a mix of shooting and speed, of cold and concentration. By the time she was 20, she was on the German national team. By 23, a world champion. By 25, an Olympic champion, twice. 7 world championship gold medals, 2 Olympic golds. Contracts, fame, magazine covers. Millions of people knew her face. Sponsors were lining up. You'd think she had it all. But then, in 2019, Laura announced her retirement from professional sports. She was 25, at the peak of her career, with at least one more Olympics ahead of her. Everyone was in shock. Her coaches didn't get it. The press hounded her with questions. But she just said, "That's it. I'm done. I've accomplished what I set out to do." And this is where her story takes a fascinating turn. Most athletes, when they retire, open coaching schools or go into business. Laura chose the mountains, the real mountains. Not the ski resorts with their hotels and chairlifts. We're talking vertical walls, where one wrong step is your last. She enrolled at a university in Munich to study sports science. She attended lectures just like any other student, studied in the library, grabbed coffee on campus. No celebrity attitude whatsoever. But at the same time, she was pursuing a completely different education in mountaineering, climbing techniques, rescue operations. She earned one certification after another, a mountain guide, ski guide, rescue specialist. And these weren't just pieces of paper to tick a box. This was years of practice, hundreds of hours on the rock, studying routes, mastering the use of ropes, carabiners, and ice axes, the physics of a fall, the psychology of extreme situations. And here's what's crucial to understand. Laura wasn't just picking up a new hobby. She was fundamentally changing her entire way of life. In biathlon, it's all about the results, seconds, points, medals. But in mountaineering, it's all about the journey. How you climb, who you climb with, and why. She's critical of commercial mountaineering. Those long lines on Everest, with guides basically hauling clients to the summit for a paycheck. Oxygen tanks, fixed ropes, porters carrying all your gear. To Laura, that's not real climbing. It's just an amusement park for the wealthy. She chooses the alpine style. No support teams, no stash supplies, no safety camps. Just 2 people, 2 backpacks, 1 rope. You make your way up, relying on nothing but yourself and your partner. By 2025, Laura is a seasoned climber. Dozens of ascents in the Alps, routes in the Himalayas under her belt. She knows what she's doing, and she's ready for a bigger challenge. So, she sets her sights on the Karakoram, the second highest mountain range in the world, right after the Himalayas. It's home to K2, the planet's second highest peak, and what many consider its most dangerous. The Karakoram is no place for tourists. 1 in every 4 people who attempt to climb its 8,000-meter peaks never comes back. Laura sets her eyes on Laila Peak, 621 kilometers north of Islamabad. This isn't some gentle slope you can just walk up. It's a near vertical wall, smooth, slick. To move up, you have to climb, driving in pitons, anchoring yourself. Every meter is a battle. Every single move demands total focus. Then, in the summer of 2025, something happens that no one could have predicted. An unprecedented heat wave. The Karakoram is normally cold, even in the summer, but this year, temperatures soar. The snow and ice on the slopes begin to melt. Rocks, held in place for centuries, are suddenly loosened. The mountainsides come alive, and they become deadly. July 28th, Laura and her partner, Marina Kraus, begin their ascent. Alpine style, no base camps, no supply drops. Everything they need is on their backs. They move fast, with precision. Laura leads, Marina is on belay. The two of them work like a well-oiled machine. The altitude climbs, 5,000 meters, then 5.5. The air's getting thinner. It's getting harder to breathe. But that's normal. It's what they expected. The two women push on. And then, at around 5,800 meters, they start to hear it. A crackling sound. Pebbles breaking loose from the slope. First small ones, then larger. The heat is taking its toll. The ice is melting, and the rocks are falling. Laura and Marina exchange a look. They both know this isn't just dangerous anymore. The risk is now critical. Going on is not an option. The decision is instant. We're turning back. We're going down. The descent begins. Laura goes first. She's using a technique called rappelling, descending a rope with a special friction device. You anchor the rope above, feed it through your rappel device, and slowly slide down. Control, fluidity, focus. Marina is about 30 meters below her. She's just finished her own rappel and is setting up for the next one. Laura is midway down. The rope is taut. Everything is under control. And in that exact moment, a rock breaks free from above. Not a pebble, a huge chunk of stone, 15 kilograms, maybe more. The sheer face of the wall accelerates it to an incredible speed. It's hurtling down like a missile, and Laura never sees it coming. She's looking down, controlling the descent. A rock hits her. Even from a distance, Marina hears the impact. Laura stops moving. She just hangs on the rope, motionless. Marina screams. Her partner's name echoes off the cliffs, but there's no answer. Complete silence. Marina knows she has to get up there, immediately. But how? She's 30 meters below her. She doesn't have the extra rope needed to climb. Rappelling only works one way, down. To ascend a sheer rock face, you need special gear. Gear she doesn't have. And the rockfall is getting worse. The heat keeps melting the ice, sending more and more stones flying. Marina presses herself against the wall, trying to find cover. But there is no cover here. The wall is almost vertical. There are barely any ledges. The minutes tick by. Laura isn't moving. Marina realizes there's no time. If she stays here, they'll both die. The only chance is to go down, to call for help, fast. She begins her descent. Every second counts. Rocks whistle past her. One hits her backpack. Another scrapes against her helmet. But Marina keeps going, down, faster, even faster. 5,700 meters, 5,500, 5,000. Finally, base camp. Marina grabs the radio. Her voice is trembling with exhaustion and fear. The distress call goes out. The response is quick. The rescue service in Pakistan responds instantly. A helicopter is prepped for takeoff. But the weather won't allow it. The wind is picking up. The clouds are rolling in. Visibility is zero. The pilots just shake their heads. Flying now is impossible. A ground team is assembled. 4 climbers, 2 porters, gear, ropes, medical supplies. They start the ascent. They move fast, but darkness catches them first. You don't climb in the mountains at night. The team halts. They set up a temporary camp and wait for dawn. And up above, at 5,700 meters, Laura hangs on the rope, motionless. At night, the temperature drops below freezing. The wind cuts right through you. No shelter, no warmth. The morning of July 29th. The rescue team resumes the climb. But the rockfall hasn't stopped. The wind whips at their faces. They can't get to Laura. It's just too dangerous. The helicopter finally takes off. The pilot carefully approaches the slope. The cameras lock on. There she is, a figure in a red jacket, hanging on the rope, motionless. No signs of life. July 29th evening. The operation is officially called off. There's no one left to save. Laura is gone. Her family confirms. She had a will. She'd written it in advance. A clear instruction. If something happens in the mountains, don't risk your lives for me. Don't put others in danger. Leave me there, forever. Her body remains on the mountain. Laila Peak becomes her final resting place. Back in Germany, memorial ceremonies are held. In Garmisch-Partenkirchen, a memorial is created. People bring flowers. They remember her medals, her smile, her choice. Because it was a choice, a conscious one. Laura knew the risks. She had trained for years. She understood that mountaineering isn't a sport of achievements. It's a way of life and a way of death, on her own terms, in her mountains. August 11th, 2025. K2, the Karakoram. Chinese mountaineer Jing Guan is standing on the summit of the planet's second highest mountain, 8,611 meters. A photograph, a smile, a flag, a dream come true. In 24 hours, she'll be dead. A rock the size of a fist is going to strike her in the head during the descent. Death will be instant. This is a story about how victory turns into tragedy in a single day. How a person can conquer the most difficult challenge, only to die on an easy section. How chance decides everything. Because on K2, there's no such thing as a safe place. There are only more dangerous places and less dangerous ones. And sometimes, a rock falls exactly where you're standing. Let's start with Jing Guan herself, a Chinese woman from Hunan province. She moved to the US, lives in San Jose, works as a yoga instructor. And that's not just a random detail. Yoga is about control of the body, the breath, the mind, everything that's critically important in the mountains. Jing is in excellent physical shape, flexible, strong, with incredible endurance. Mountaineering didn't come into her life right away. First, it was trekking, hiking in the mountains without any actual climbing. Then came the first summits, small ones, then higher, and higher still. It gets under your skin, the way it always does for those who've tasted the heights. In 2024, Jing takes on Everest, a commercial expedition, the standard package, Sherpas, oxygen, fixed ropes. She reaches the summit, 8,848 meters, her first 8,000er. But the story doesn't end with a photo at the top. Jing does a handstand, right there, on the roof of the world, in the thin air, in the freezing cold. This requires an incredible amount of physical conditioning and control. The video goes viral on social media, millions of views. Jing becomes a media figure. Some are in awe, others criticize. They say it's a circus, not mountaineering. Why risk it all for a flashy photo? Jing's response is calm. This is my summit, my moment. I do what I want. And so, she prepares for the next step. K2, 8,611 meters. Second in height, but first in danger. The statistics are brutal. 1 in every 4 people who attempt the summit never returns. For comparison, on Everest, 1 in 100 die. K2 doesn't kill you with its altitude. It kills you with the technicality of the route, the steepness of its slopes, the unpredictable weather, rock falls, avalanches, ice collapses. Here, you can't just walk along the fixed ropes. You have to climb, to think, to make decisions every single minute. Jing chooses the Abruzzi Spur route, the classic path from the south side. It's the most popular route, but not the safest. The route follows the spur, a massive jutting ridge. It's steep, rocky, with patches of ice. She's climbing with the company Imagine Nepal, an experienced team. They have dozens of 8,000er ascents under their belt. The Sherpas set the fixed ropes in advance. The camps are staged up the mountain. Base camp is at 5,000 meters. Camp 1, around 6,000. Camp 2, 7,000. Camp 3, 7,500. Camp 4, 8,000. From there, it's the summit push. The acclimatization goes according to plan. An ascent to Camp 1, then back down. An ascent to Camp 2, back down again. The body adapts, she's preparing, waiting for a weather window. Finally, the forecast is looking good. The wind is dying down, the temperature is rising. The teams begin their final push. Jing moves with her group, slowly, methodically, step by step. August 11th, 3:32 p.m. Pakistan time. Jing Guan is on the summit of K2. It's officially confirmed. The time is logged, she's done it. Her second 8,000er, and one of the most dangerous. Photographs, hugs with the team, a brief moment of joy. But everyone knows it's too early to relax. The summit is only halfway. Not even halfway. Most deaths happen on the way down. When your strength is gone. When your focus wavers. When you think the worst is over. The descent begins immediately. You can't linger in the death zone. Every minute spent up there takes its toll on the body. The group moves down, using the same fixed ropes, following the same route. Only now, they're facing the slope, with their backs to the abyss. They spend the night between August 11th and 12th at one of the high camps. A short rest, a couple of hours of sleep. Then, back to the descent. They have to get out of the death zone. Below 8,000 meters, below 7,000. The lower they get, the safer it is. The evening of August 12th, Jing is descending between Camp 1 and Base Camp. The altitude is around 5,500 meters. By K2 standards, that's already low. The air is thicker here. It's easier to breathe. They're through the worst of it. A section of the lower buttress, rock, ice, fixed ropes. It's not technically difficult compared to the sections higher up. Jing is moving confidently. She's tired, of course. 2 days in the death zone will drain anyone, but she's pushing through. Just a little further to base camp, to safety, hot tea, rest. And then a sound, a crack, then a whistle, a rock. It breaks loose from somewhere above, maybe 100 meters, maybe more. It's falling fast, gaining speed. The steep slope sends it hurtling down like a bullet. Jing doesn't see it. She doesn't hear any warning. The fist-sized rock hits her in the head. She's wearing a helmet, but it doesn't help. The angle of impact is unlucky. The force is just too great. Jing collapses, instantly, without a sound, without even trying to catch herself. She hangs from her safety line, motionless. The team stops. Someone shouts her name. There's no response. A Sherpa climbs up to her. He checks for a pulse, for breath, for any pupil reaction. Nothing. Jing is dead. The rock hit a critical spot. The team is in shock. Just moments ago, she was with them, alive, tired but alive, descending, talking, breathing, and then she wasn't. There's no one to save. Her body needs to be brought down. But how? Carrying a person down a steep slope is a risk for everyone, especially when the rockfall continues, because where one rock has fallen, others are sure to follow. They decide to leave her body where it is, for now. To get down to base camp, raise the alarm, and organize a recovery mission with more people and gear. The team reaches base camp, they report the tragedy. The official confirmation goes out. A Chinese mountaineer has died on K2, the second fatality of the season, rockfall. A recovery team gets ready to head up. They need to retrieve the body, bring it to base camp, then by helicopter to Skardu, and from there, repatriation to China or the United States. But first, they have to get up there, to 5,500 meters, where the rocks are constantly falling. The recovery takes several days. The rockfall is relentless. August in the Karakoram is abnormally warm. The ice is melting. Rocks lose their footing. They fall constantly. It's worse during the day when the sun heats the slopes, so the rescuers climb at night, when it's colder, when the rockfall is less intense. They find the body, secure it to a stretcher, and begin the descent. Slowly, carefully. Every step is a risk, and then more rockfall. One of the rescuers is hit. It's not fatal, but it's painful. A shoulder injury. The team stops. They provide first aid and continue their descent. Finally, they reach base camp. The base camp team takes over. A helicopter recovers the body, flying it to a hospital in Skardu. There, the official identification takes place. Then, preparations for repatriation, paperwork, formalities. The news breaks. Jing Guan has died on K2. She reached the summit, only to die on the descent, struck in the head by a falling rock. The second fatality of the season, The climbing community is talking, the descent again, rockfall again. And again the statistics prove true. Most climbers don't die on the way up. They die on the way down, right when you think the worst is behind you. Experts link the tragedy to the abnormal heat wave. August of 2025. In the Karakoram was warmer than usual. The ice was melting faster. Rocks were falling more frequently. The routes were becoming more treacherous. But the truth is, on K2, the rocks are always falling, whether it's hot or cold, August or July. Ice melts, rocks come loose. That's just the nature of the mountain. Sometimes there are more of them, sometimes fewer. And sometimes, one single rock heads straight for the exact spot where you happen to be standing. Jing had already passed the hardest parts. She'd summited K2, descended from the death zone, made it through the technical sections. She was so close to base camp, so close to safety, to that moment where you can finally exhale and say, I did it, I'm back. But she never came back, because a rock doesn't care how far you have left to go. It just falls, and if you're in its path, that's it. A helmet won't save you. Experience is no help. Your physical condition is irrelevant. Doing a handstand on Everest doesn't grant you immunity. On K2, there are no guarantees. You can be the best climber in the world. You can do everything by the book, climb safely, rope up perfectly, and still die from a rock, an avalanche, a collapsing serac, simply because random chance chose you. Jing Guan reached the summit on August 11th at 3:32 in the afternoon. She was dead by the evening of the 12th, between triumph and tragedy, just one day, 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, and one single rock. July 3rd, 2025, Nanga Parbat, Pakistan. A Sherpa descends to Camp 1, alone, without his client. He says she fell, during the night, somewhere between 6,000 and 7,000 meters. I heard a scream, he reports. Then, silence. A search begins for what can no longer be found. This is the story of Klára Kolouchová, the first Czech woman to summit Everest, the first on K2, a mother of two. She was a woman who proved you could have it all, a career in an office, and a life conquering the world's 8,000-meter peaks. She proved you could be cautious, and still not make it back. Our story begins in Prague, 1978. Klára grew up in an ordinary family. There were no mountains nearby, no family history of climbing. The Czech Republic is a relatively flat country. Its highest point is just 1,600 meters. For a serious mountaineer, that's not even a warm-up. But from a young age, Klára was captivated by photos of the Himalayas. She read books about great ascents. She dreamed of the peaks. And when she grew up, she started to take action, systematically, rationally, with no room for romance. She didn't quit her job. She didn't run off to the mountains for good. Instead, she built a career in the corporate world, an office, meetings, reports, a normal life. But every vacation was an expedition. Every weekend was for training. She was balancing two different worlds, and she was succeeding in both. By the early 2000s, Klára was training seriously as a high-altitude mountaineer. This wasn't just about physical conditioning. It was about learning how your body reacts to altitude, how your lungs work when deprived of oxygen, how your brain copes with the thin air, how the body recovers from extreme exertion. And it turned out, Klára had a gift. Her body adapted to high altitudes quickly, faster than most people. It was a rare talent, a serious advantage. 2007. Klára becomes the first Czech woman to summit Everest, 8,848 meters, the roof of the world. She used supplemental oxygen, which is standard for commercial expeditions. This wasn't about heroics, it was about getting the result. But this was just the beginning. Klára made a plan, the 7 Summits program, the highest peaks on every continent, Elbrus, Kilimanjaro, Aconcagua, Denali, Vinson Massif, Karsten's Pyramid, Everest. By 2015, she had climbed them all. 7 continents, 7 summits, box ticked. But high-altitude mountaineering is addictive. The 8,000ers, they're in a league of their own. 14 peaks above 8,000 meters, the death zone. A place where the human body is slowly dying, just from being there. 2019, Klára takes on K2. 8,611 meters. The second highest mountain in the world, but the most dangerous. 1 in 4 people who attempt the summit don't come back. Klára came back, the first Czech woman to conquer K2. That same year, Kangchenjunga, 8,586 meters, the third highest peak in the world. Technically difficult. Unpredictable weather. Klára summited, once again, the first Czech woman to do so. 2024, Annapurna, 8,091 meters, the deadliest of all the 8,000ers. The fatality rate is even higher than on K2. Avalanches, rockfalls, collapsing ice seracs. Annapurna does not forgive mistakes. Klára climbed that one too. 4 8,000ers down. Everest, K2, Kangchenjunga, Annapurna. She was a national hero in the Czech Republic, a mother of 2, a successful career woman. On the surface, everything seemed perfect, but Klára kept going. 2025, Nanga Parbat, 8,125 meters, the 9th highest peak on the planet. But to climbers, it's one of the most feared. They call it the Killer Mountain. The death toll is 1 climber for every 5 ascents. So, let's take a moment to understand just what this place is. Nanga Parbat stands apart from the other 8,000ers. A massive solitary giant of a mountain with incredibly steep slopes. The routes are long, grueling. The weather can change in a matter of minutes. Avalanches strike without warning. The summer of 2025 is abnormally warm, all across the Himalayas. Snow is melting faster than normal. Glaciers are losing their integrity. Where there should be slopes of snow, there's just bare ice, glistening, hard, and slick. And then there are the rocks. Ice held them in place for years. Now, it's melting, and the rocks are coming loose, every single day. Sometimes they're small, sometimes the size of a refrigerator. There's no way to predict them, and no way to hear them coming. The route Klára's expedition chooses is the Kinshofer Wall. This is no walk in the park. It's technical, high-altitude climbing, steep sections, sheer rock faces, ice couloirs, narrow gullies between the cliffs, where the ice is compacted and polished smooth by the wind. The camps are set at different altitudes. Base camp at 4,900 meters, Camp 1 at 6,000, Camp 2 at 6,700, Camp 3 at 7,300. The Sherpas set up fixed ropes between the camps. These are lines anchored to the slope, which climbers use to go up and down with an ascender and a rappel device. But the conditions are unstable. The ice is melting. Anchors hammered in at dawn can be loose by dusk. The ropes sag. The route itself changes daily. July 2nd. The team is ascending to Camp 4. The altitude is between 7,200 and 7,400 meters. This is the last stop before the summit push. From here, they leave at night to be at the top by sunrise and get back down before dark. Klára arrives at the camp. She sets up her tent. She begins to prepare for the push, but she feels something is wrong. Her head is spinning more than usual. Her breathing is ragged. Her coordination is off. The signs of hypoxia and exhaustion. She's experienced. 4 8,000ers under her belt. She knows her body. She knows when to push on and when to stop. And she makes the decision. I'm turning around. I'm going down. The summit can wait. It's the right call. The rational one. The cautious one. This is how Klára has always operated. It's why she came back from Everest, K2, Kangchenjunga, Annapurna. She didn't play the hero. She calculated the risks. But this time, the risk came from where she least expected it. The night descent begins. Klára is with her Sherpa, Taraman Tamang, an experienced guide, dozens of ascents. He knows the route. He knows the dangerous sections. They move slowly, carefully. The mountains at night are a different world. The beam of your headlamp only picks out a few meters ahead. Beyond that, blackness. You see the fixed rope, you see your hands, you see the snow under your feet. Everything else is a void. It's cold. The wind cuts right through you. Your fingers go numb, even inside your gloves. Every single movement demands concentration. Clip into the rope, unclip, clip into the next section. One step, another step. Check your harness, move lower. Somewhere between 6,000 and 6,500 meters, they reach a stretch of bare ice. There's no snow here at all. The heat had melted it all away. All that was left was ice, hard as glass. Crampons scrape across it, but they don't always bite. A narrow couloir. Walls on both sides. A fixed line ran down the center. Klára was following standard procedure. Her Sherpa guide was just ahead, or maybe just behind, managing the rope. And then, a scream. Sharp, short, followed by silence. The Sherpa stops, shines his headlamp down. Klára's gone. The fixed line is still there, but she isn't. He shouts her name. It echoes off the rock walls. No answer. What exactly happened is impossible to know. Maybe Klára slipped on the ice. Maybe she was unclipped from the line while switching her gear. Maybe exhaustion played a role, and her coordination gave out at the critical moment. At night, in the dark, you can't know for sure. One thing is clear. She fell. Straight down the couloir. Hundreds of meters, over ice and rock. No stopping it, no chance. The Sherpa knows descending in the dark is pointless. He won't find her, and he risks falling himself. The only option is to get to base camp, to raise the alarm, fast. He continues his descent, alone. The hours tick by. Finally, base camp. He bursts into the tent. He says she fell. I heard it. Somewhere between Camp 1 and Camp 2. Maybe higher. I don't know for sure. The morning of July 3rd, Pakistani authorities receive a message, official confirmation. A climber from the Czech Republic is missing on Nanga Parbat, believed to have fallen into a couloir. July 4th, the army sends a helicopter. A search and rescue operation begins. The pilots fly over the section between Camp 1 and Camp 2. They scan the couloirs with binoculars. Cameras record the slope. Nothing. No tracks, no sign of a body. July 5th, 6th, and 7th. A ground search. A team of climbers scours the couloirs. They check the ice falls. They peer into crevasses. Nothing. Klára has vanished. The rockfall is getting worse. The heat continues to melt the ice. Every hour on the slope is a risk for the rescuers. They make a quick decision. Call off the search. It's too dangerous. The official cause of death is an accidental fall during a nighttime descent. Exhaustion, darkness, sheer ice. A combination of factors. Her family accepts the conclusion. Klára is declared dead. Her body was not found. It will never be found. In the Czech Republic, the news spreads across social media. A national hero is gone. The first to summit Everest. The first on K2. A mother of two. A woman who proved that anything was possible. And she died. Doing everything right. Because sometimes, doing everything right just isn't enough. Sometimes you turn back from the summit. You make the cautious decision. You descend at night with an experienced Sherpa. You follow every protocol. And you still fall. Because the ice is slippery. Because it's dark. Because you're tired. Because the mountains don't forgive you, even when you do everything by the book. Story 4. Cristian Brenna, Tragedy, near Arco, June 3rd, 11 in the morning. Monte Biena, overlooking the town of Arco. Cristian Brenna loses his footing on a steep section. He begins to slide down the grassy slope. He falls, hitting the rocks below. He fell for dozens of meters, maybe even 100. It's impossible to know for sure. His climbing partner can't get down to him safely, so he calls for rescue. They arrive quickly, but it's too late. Cristian Brenna is dead. One of the strongest European climbers of the 90s and the 2000s. He died during a simple mountain hike. No protection, no rope, on a trail that didn't even require technical climbing. Who was Cristian Brenna? For anyone who wasn't around for the 90s climbing scene, he's just a name. But for those who remember, he's a legend. Born on July 22, 1970, in Trentino, Italy, a region where climbing isn't just a sport, it's a way of life. This is a place where you grow up on the rock, where kids learn to climb before they can even read, and Cristian became one of the strongest. Not just good, one of the very best in the world. He was a regular on the lead climbing World Cup circuit, 7 podium finishes, 2nd place, 3rd place, over and over again. This was in an era of fierce competition, a time when only the absolute monsters of the sport made it to the podium. He was sending sport routes up to grade 9A. That's a level that seemed like pure science fiction back in the 90s. routes that demand absolute technique, power, endurance, and mental fortitude. He on-sighted routes up to 8B+. That means climbing it on his very first try, with no prior information about the moves. That's a level of mastery that's out of reach for most professional climbers, even today. He on-sighted 108 routes. 100, not 5, not 10. 100. But Cristian didn't just stick to sport climbing. He ventured into alpinism, big walls, complex routes. Ithaca nel Sole, Bella Vista, Up and Down, Cerro Pier Giorgio, names that mean everything to those in the know. He earned his UIAGM IFMGA Mountain Guide certification, the international gold standard, the highest qualification there is. This isn't just a piece of paper. It represents years of training, hundreds of days out in the mountains, grueling exams, a true test of mettle. It's the right to guide people in the high mountains and to hold their lives in your hands. Cristian also became a rescuer with the SAGF, the mountain rescue service of Italy's Guardia di Finanza, an elite unit. These are the people who go where others fear to tread, the ones who pull people off sheer cliff faces, who operate in environments where one mistake can cost you your life. He coached the Italian national climbing team, passing on his experience, mentoring the youth, forging the next generation of champions. He was respected. People listened when he spoke. Everyone in the European climbing world knew who he was. He lived and worked in and around Arco, a small town in Trentino that's a true mecca for climbers. It's a place that hosts international competitions. Climbers flock here from all over the globe. There are hundreds of limestone routes, ranging from beginner-friendly to the absolute extreme. On June 3, 2025, Cristian set out on a route along the ridge of Monte Biena, not to climb a rock face, just for a mountain hike. The peak sits at about 1,350 meters above Arco. The route is a ridge with forested and grassy slopes. It's not technical climbing, it's hiking, a mountain trail. There are steep sections, but they're manageable. Rocky outcrops, grassy slopes. Nothing that would require a rope, nothing that would require protection. For someone with Cristian's experience, this was just a walk in the park. He was with a colleague from the SAGF, another rescuer, another pro. They knew these mountains like the back of their hands. They'd been up here hundreds of times, in all kinds of weather, in all kinds of conditions. It was just a normal day. The weather was fine, no storm, no heavy rain, no ice on the ground, nothing out of the ordinary, just a walk, a warm-up, a day off. Around 11 in the morning, Cristian slips. On a steep section, a grassy slope. Maybe it was the wet grass, maybe a loose rock underfoot, maybe just a bad step. He starts to slide. He tries to stop, clawing at the grass, at the rocks. But the slope is steep. The momentum is too much. He falls, tumbles, hitting the rocks. Accounts of the fall vary. Some say it was dozens of meters, others closer to 100. The exact distance doesn't matter. What matters is that he's falling down a rocky slope, with no rope, no protection, alone. He hits once, twice, a third time, a fourth. His partner sees it all. He screams. But there's nothing he can do. It's impossible to get down to him safely. The slope is too steep. The risk of falling himself is just too high. He calls for rescue. The CNSAS arrive, the National Alpine and Cave Rescue Service. The Guardia di Finanza, the Financial Guard, are there too. Cristian's colleagues, the people he worked with, the ones he trained, the ones he'd rescued, they make their way down to him. They check his condition, searching for any sign of life. There are none. Resuscitation is impossible. The nature of his injuries, they're incompatible with life. Cristian Brenna is dead, right there on the spot. In the mountains he knew better than the back of his hand. The official story: an accidental fall during a ridge walk. No technical climbing, no extreme conditions, just a tragic accident, a fatal mix of circumstances. One wrong step, one slip, and that was it. The Italian media publishes obituaries. International climbing websites run reconstructions of the event. The Guide Alpine Italian, the Italian Mountain Guides Association, releases an official statement. They express their condolences. They recall his achievements. They speak of the loss to the entire community. And the climbing and mountaineering community is left asking, how could this have happened? How could one of the strongest climbers in Europe die on a simple mountain trail? a man who had climbed 9A, who could on-site 8B+, a man who was a mountain guide, a rescuer, a professional of the highest caliber. The answer is an uncomfortable one, but it's honest. The easy routes are killers. Sometimes they're even more deadly than the hard ones, because on the hard routes, you're focused, you're roped up. You check every move. On the easy ones, you relax. You walk with confidence. No rope, no protection. You think, it's just an easy trail. What could possibly go wrong? Anything can go wrong. Anyone can slip. A pro, a beginner, an Olympic champion. It doesn't matter. Gravity doesn't ask for your resume. The rocks don't care about your achievements. Cristian Brenna spent his life on the rocks and in the mountains. Thousands of outings. Tens of thousands of hours at altitude. He knew the risks. He understood the dangers. He knew how to assess a situation. But on June 3rd, 2025, none of that was enough. One step, one slip, one slope, one fall. And the man who climbed 9A, who rescued others, who coached the national team, is dead. On a route that requires no technical climbing. Out on a walk he'd taken 100 times. Cristian Brenna's death really shook the European climbing world back in 2025. Not because he was some superstar, a free solo or Everest-level celebrity, but because he was one of us, part of the community, a pro everyone knew and respected, a man whose whole life was the rocks and the mountains. And he died on a simple hiking trail. No extreme weather, no technical climbing. He just slipped and fell and never got back up. Story 5, Margareta Morin, Kangchenjunga, May 10th, night. On Kangchenjunga, an altitude of around 7,800 meters. Suddenly, Margareta Morin feels unwell, terribly unwell. She loses consciousness. She can't walk. She can't speak. Her guide and the Sherpas try to help. But it's no use. She dies there, on the side of the mountain, without ever reaching the summit. On her very first 8,000er. At the age of 63, this was Margareta Morin, a French citizen of Romanian descent, originally from Transylvania. She'd been living and working in France since 1985. She was a professional flutist, a teacher at the Conservatory in Sainte-Foy-les-Lyons, a classically trained musician, a woman of the arts. She wasn't a professional mountaineer. She discovered the mountains later in life, not in her 20s, not in her 30s, but in her 50s. When most people are thinking about retirement, Margareta was thinking about summits. She started small, back in 2013. Kilimanjaro, 5,895 meters. Africa's highest peak. Not technically difficult, but physically demanding. She made it. Next, Lulalaco, 6,739 meters. A volcano on the border of Chile and Argentina. A serious step up in altitude. The acclimatization, much tougher. Again, she summited. Kang Yatse in Ladakh. Then, Lenin Peak in the Pamirs, 7,134 meters, her first 7,000er. This was serious altitude, and Margareta made it to the top. Mount Ararat, the biblical mountain, 5,137 meters, a symbolic climb. And another success for Margareta. Her experience grew. Her confidence soared. She was learning her limits, learning how her body performed at altitude, how it reacted to the lack of oxygen, how it recovered from the strain. Then, in 2025, she made her decision. By then, she was 63 years old. It was time for an 8,000er. Not Everest. It was too crowded. Not Cho Oyu, too straightforward for a first attempt. She chose Kangchenjunga, the third highest peak in the world. One of the most beautiful, and one of the most challenging. Margareta made an informed choice. She read the reports, she studied the statistics, she understood the risks. She knew that Kangchenjunga was technically and physically more demanding than many other 8,000ers, but she believed in her training, in her experience, in herself. And there's an important detail here. Margareta wasn't planning on reaching the true summit. Local tradition holds that the final few feet of Kangchenjunga are sacred. Climbers stop just short of the top, out of respect. And Margareta intended to honor that tradition. She wasn't there for a record. She was there for the experience. Kangchenjunga, 8,586 meters, the third highest mountain on the planet. It sits on the border of Nepal and the Indian state of Sikkim, a massif with 5 distinct peaks. Its name translates to the 5 treasures of the Great Snows. This is one of the most technically and physically demanding peaks in the Himalayas. It's not the highest, that's Everest and K2, but it's right up there when it comes to difficulty and danger. The death rate here is higher than on many other 8,000ers. The main risks? The altitude, unpredictable weather, and very limited rescue options. Kangchenjunga is incredibly remote. Base camp is a multi-day trek from the nearest village. Helicopters can only fly in perfect weather. And above 7,000 meters, an evacuation is next to impossible. The standard route on the Nepalese side requires a long period of acclimatization. Base camp sits at around 5,000 meters. From there, you have several intermediate camps. Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3. Each one higher than the last. Each one closer to the death zone. Camp 4 is located at around 7,600 to 7,700 meters. Depending on the numbering system, it's sometimes called Camp 6. This is the final camp before the summit push. Climbers set out from here at night. They move in total darkness, hoping to return by dawn or later. Rescue operations above this point are virtually impossible. The altitude is just too great, the air too thin. Helicopters can't hover. People are operating at the absolute limit of their capabilities. Every single movement takes a monumental effort. Spring, 2025. A woman named Margareta joins a commercial expedition with Peak 15 Adventure. It's a reputable company, experienced guides, professional high-altitude Sherpas. Everything is set up the right way. On her rope team is IFMGA guide, Tendi Sherpa. That's an international certification. He has years of experience on 8,000ers, a true professional. And also, French alpinist Catherine Vouliez, another client on the expedition. They'll be climbing together. Margareta goes through the acclimatization process. She climbs up to the intermediate camps, then comes back down, letting her body adapt to the altitude. This is standard practice. You can't just go for an 8,000er without it. Your body simply wouldn't handle it. The weather is fickle. They wait for a window of opportunity, and then it opens. The decision is made. It's time to go. The night of May 9th, going into the 10th. The group sets out for the summit from the high camp. This is standard tactics. Moving at night lets them tackle the most difficult sections in the cold when the snow is firm. The goal is to get back down before the sun softens the slopes and increases the risk. Margareta is roped up. Tendi Sherpa is in the lead. Catherine is close by. The high-altitude Sherpas are there to support them, carrying extra oxygen, securing the ropes, monitoring the client's condition. They move upward, meter by meter, step by step. At 8,000 meters, every single step is a struggle. Breathing is labored, even with supplemental oxygen. Your legs feel like lead. Your brain slows to a crawl. They're at an altitude of around 7,800 meters. Suddenly, Margareta feels unwell. This isn't just exhaustion. It's bad, sudden, critical. What exactly is happening? No one knows for sure. Is it acute mountain sickness, cerebral edema, pulmonary edema, a stroke? At 8,000 meters, a diagnosis is impossible. There's no equipment, no time, no way to know. Margareta loses consciousness, and she collapses. She's not responding, can't stand, can't walk. Tendi Sherpa and the high-altitude Sherpas try to help. Resuscitation at 8,000 meters. It's basically science fiction. Still, they try. Chest compressions, rescue breaths, oxygen, everything they can think of. It's no use. They know they have to get down. Now. Every minute at this altitude is critical. But how are they going to do it? Margareta is unconscious. She weighs 60, maybe 70 kilograms, plus her gear, plus her clothes. At 8,000 meters, even an empty backpack feels impossibly heavy. They try to carry her, to drag her, to lower her on ropes. The weather is turning, the wind is picking up, visibility is dropping, they're at their own limit. Every single movement takes a monumental effort. Their oxygen is running low. So is their strength. They can't get her down. They physically can't. It's not a question of will or skill. It's a question of what the human body is capable of at this altitude. Margareta dies right there, at around 7,800 meters. She never made it to the summit. never completed her first 8,000er. The weather prevents any other groups from coming up to help. Even if they wanted to, they couldn't reach them. The wind, the snow, the visibility, the altitude, everything is against them. Her body remains on the mountain. A recovery is impossible. The risk to any rescue team would be far too high. At 8,000 meters, you don't risk a life for a body, only for a person who's still alive. And even then, it's not a given. The Nepalese and French media report the tragedy. The cause of death is listed as complications from high-altitude sickness. It's the standard explanation in these situations. Some reports mention the possibility of a stroke, but there's no definitive diagnosis, and there never will be. You don't perform an autopsy at 8,000 meters. Her death became part of a larger conversation about the risks of climbing 8,000ers for people over 60. It's not a new debate, but it's a difficult one. On the one hand, age isn't a death sentence. There are plenty of examples of successful summits by people in their 60s, even their 70s. Experience, wisdom, and knowing your own body can sometimes count for more than youth and raw power. But, on the other hand, you can't argue with physiology. The heart doesn't work as efficiently. Blood vessels are less flexible. Recovery takes longer. The risk of a stroke or a heart attack is higher. At 8,000 meters, all of those factors are magnified exponentially. Margareta knew the risks. She wasn't naive. She'd studied the statistics. She'd consulted with doctors. She trained physically. She did everything by the book. But on an 8,000er, doing everything by the book is no guarantee of anything. Kangchenjunga is still standing, the third highest peak in the world, one of the most beautiful, and one of the deadliest. Its slopes are littered with the bodies of those who never made it down. Margareta is now one of them. Story 6. Yalung Ri, The Avalanche, 7 Dead. November 3rd, 2025. The Rolwaling region of Nepal, 9 a.m. A group of climbers is making its way up a snow-covered slope on Yalung Ri Peak. It's a training peak, a straightforward route, just an acclimatization run before a more serious climb. And then, a deep rumble. The entire slope begins to move. A white wave engulfs them. 6 meters of snow come crashing down. In a matter of seconds, 7 people vanish beneath the avalanche. This is the story of how something safe becomes deadly. How a training climb turns into a disaster. How experienced guides and well-prepared climbers end up buried in snow. On a mountain that isn't even considered a challenge. First, what exactly is Yalung Ri? It's a peak standing at 5,630 meters. In the Himalayas, that's practically nothing. Many of the 8,000-meter giants have base camps that start higher than that. Yalung Ri is what's known as a trekking peak, which means it's technically straightforward. No vertical walls, no complex rock climbing. You're mostly just walking, maybe with a bit of ice, a couple of ropes for safety. Climbers use peaks like this to acclimatize. You get up to 5,500 meters, let your body adjust to the altitude, and then you're ready to push higher, to 6, 7, or even 8,000 meters. It's standard practice. It's smart. It's the right way to do things. In the fall of 2025, an international team arrives in Nepal. Their goal, Dahlmeier, a 7,000-meter peak, a serious mountain. But first, they need to acclimatize. They choose Yalung Ri. It's the perfect option. Close, accessible, and safe. The team is made up of climbers from all over. 2 Italians, a Frenchman, a Canadian, and a German. Among them are Paolo Coco and Christian Andre Manfredi, names that, in just a few days, will be all over the news. They're working with Nepalese guides, experienced Sherpas, Phurba Tenzing. Sherpa and Naima Gyalzin. Sherpa are the team leaders. They have dozens of ascents under their belts. They know the mountains. They know the dangers. They know when to push on and when to turn back. This is a commercial expedition. The clients pay, the guides lead. It's the standard setup. Safety, logistics, support. Everything is organized. On the surface, everything is under control. But there's one factor that no one can control: the weather. In Nepal, late October and early November mark the beginning of cyclone season. The monsoons are over, but atmospheric fronts are still active. It's a transitional period, unpredictable. A few days before the climb, the snow starts to fall, And not just a light dusting. We're talking heavy, dense snowfall. Snow builds up on the slopes, layer after layer. New snow settles on top of the old. But the bond between them is weak. It's the classic recipe for an avalanche. Avalanche risk is measured on a scale. Low, medium, high, very high. After a snowfall like that, the risk level automatically jumps to high. Every climber knows this. Every guide understands it. But here's the problem. Yalung Ri is considered easy. A trekking peak. A training mountain. Psychologically, that lowers the perception of risk. The thinking goes, we're not climbing Everest. We're not on K2. This is Yalung Ri. It's safe. What could possibly go wrong? It can, because an avalanche doesn't care what mountain it's on. It doesn't care if the route is difficult or easy. The physics are the same. The snow is built up. The slope is steep. The bond is weak. All it takes is a trigger. And the whole thing comes crashing down. November 3rd. Morning. The team sets out from base camp. Their path leads up a snow-covered slope. The Sherpas are in the lead, with the clients following behind. A standard rope team formation. Fixed ropes are in place. Everything is organized. The weather isn't perfect. It's overcast. Visibility is moderate, but it's not critical. The team makes a decision. They're going for it. They need to acclimatize. The schedule is tight. Next, we're heading for Dahlmeier. There's no time to waste. Carol Fuchs stays below. She's not feeling well. She decides to rest at camp, hoping to climb later if she feels better. This decision saves her life. It's 9 in the morning. The group is on the slope, at an altitude of just over 5,000 meters. They're crossing an icy section. The snow underfoot is firm. Their crampons have a solid grip. No warning signs whatsoever. And then, a sound. A deep, low rumble, and it's getting louder. A roar. Carol hears it, even down at the camp. She turns around and sees a white cloud blooming on the slope. A plume of snow dust shoots into the air. Shouts. Pure panic in their voices. An avalanche. A massive one. A whole slab of snow has broken loose from somewhere above. Tons of snow, set in motion. It picks up speed, 30, 50, 70 kilometers an hour. A white wave obliterates everything in its path. The group on the slope doesn't have time to react. Some try to run to the side. It's useless. The slide is too wide. Others try to dig themselves into the snow. There's no time. The wave swallows them in seconds. At first, the snow is like powder. Then, it compacts. The pressure builds. It tumbles you, twists you, breaks you, burying you completely. Snow forces its way into your nose, your mouth, your ears. Breathing is impossible. Moving is impossible. You're trapped in a tomb of compressed snow, as hard as concrete. Carol grabs the satellite phone. Her hands are shaking as she types a message to the expedition leader. It's short, urgent, avalanche, group hit, need help, now. She starts running uphill toward the site of the slide. Her heart is pounding in her chest. She's gasping for air, but she keeps running, because she knows every single minute counts. In the first 15 minutes under the snow, there's a chance of survival. After 30 minutes, it's almost gone. After an hour, it's virtually zero. She reaches the scene. It's a nightmare. The avalanche debris field is enormous. Just snow and chaos everywhere. A few people have managed to dig themselves out, or were pulled out right away. They're in shock, and they're injured. One man is clutching a broken arm. Another can't stand. His leg is mangled. A third just sits in the snow, staring at nothing. But where is everyone else? Carol screams their names. Paolo! Christian! There's no reply, only the wind. The survivors start digging, with their bare hands, with shovels. With probes, long metal rods, they plunge into the snow, hoping to hit something or someone. The avalanche beacons are beeping. There's a signal coming from deep under the snow. They focus their digging there. The snowpack is about 6 meters deep. It's a staggering amount of snow, dense, heavy. Each cubic meter weighs a ton. Digging quickly is impossible. The shovels barely penetrate the surface. Arms burn with exhaustion. Every breath is a struggle. The altitude is crushing them. They find the first body. It's the Italian, Paolo. He's buried under 2 meters of snow. He isn't moving. They check for a pulse. There's nothing. They keep digging. A second body, then a third, a fourth, they're all gone. There's no air under the snow. The oxygen in your lungs is gone in just a couple of minutes. Christian Andre Manfredi is among them. Another Italian, a Frenchman, a Canadian, a German. 2 Nepalese guides, 7 people, 7 lives extinguished in a single second. 8 others are injured. They need evacuation, and they need it now. But the helicopter isn't coming. The weather has turned against them. The clouds have descended, blanketing the mountain. Visibility is 0. The pilots can only shake their heads. Flying in this is a suicide mission. And on top of all that, there's another problem. Because of the special regulations in this zone, helicopters can't take off without official clearance. Help is a long time coming. Time is slipping away, and the group is still up there. It's the night of November 3rd, going into the 4th. The injured are in makeshift tents. They've been given first aid, but it's nowhere near enough. They need to be hospitalized. But that's all the way down in Kathmandu. Up here, there's nothing but snow, cold, and darkness. On the morning of the 4th, the weather breaks, just a little. The clouds lift, visibility returns, the helicopters finally get the green light. They take off, one by one, picking up the injured. 8 people are airlifted to Kathmandu. They'll survive, physically at least. Psychologically, that's another question. The bodies are left behind. Digging any deeper is too dangerous. The snowpack is unstable. There could be another avalanche. The rescuers are already putting their own lives on the line. There's no point in adding more names to the list of the dead. A few of the bodies are recovered on the first day. The others are buried under 6 meters of snow. Their official status is changed to missing, presumed dead. The media latches onto the story. Avalanche in Nepal, 7 dead. An international team, experienced guides, a training peak. How could this happen? And the questions begin to fly, on climbing forums, across social media, in official reports. The biggest question is, why did they go? There had been heavy snowfall. The danger was clear. The forecast was there. So why didn't they just wait? The theories vary. Some say they underestimated the risk, lulled by the route's supposed simplicity. Others claim they were pressured by the schedule, that they had to keep moving. And then there are those who place the blame squarely on the guides, saying they should have turned the group back. But the truth is, it's a situation where no one is to blame, and yet everyone is. Because in the mountains, every decision is a gamble made in the face of uncertainty. You never know for sure if an avalanche will slide. All you can do is assess the probability, high, medium, low, and then you make your call. The group made the choice to go. Maybe they hoped to slip through before it let go. Maybe they thought the slope was safe. Maybe they were just unlucky. The avalanche came down right there, right then, right on top of them. The tragedy becomes a chapter in a much larger story. The Nepal snowstorm disaster of 2025. A series of incidents in the fall of that year, all tied to freak weather patterns. The incident on Yalung Ri was the deadliest, but it wasn't the only one. The climbing community learns its lessons. The biggest one, even easy mountains kill. Acclimatization peaks aren't safe by default. The weather has the final say. The snow has the final say. And underestimating the risk just because a route looks simple, that's a one-way ticket to disaster. Paolo Coco, Christian Andre Manfredi, and 5 others didn't plan to die. They were on a training climb, a warm-up for a more serious peak, a safe stroll, or so it seemed. But the mountains don't grade on a curve. They don't see routes as easy or hard. To them, everyone is the same. And an avalanche doesn't ask if you're a pro or a beginner. It just lets go. And it takes everyone in its path. Beneath 6 meters of snow, there's no difference between a professional and an amateur. There is only silence. Story 7. Victoria Bond, Torres del Paine. November 17th, morning. We're at the John Garner Pass in Torres del Paine. A group of about 30 hikers begins the climb, heading up to 1,200 meters. The weather is mild. It's windy, but manageable. Visibility is good. Everything seems fine. But after 10 a.m., things take a sharp turn. The wind gusts up to 190 kilometers per hour. Snow begins to fall. Visibility drops to just 2 or 3 meters. A whiteout. A blinding curtain of snow where you can't tell the ground from the sky. The hikers get disoriented. They split up into smaller groups. They lose sight of one another. By evening, it's clear Several people are missing. 5 of them will die from hypothermia on the slopes of the pass. Among them is a British woman, Victoria Bond, a woman with trekking experience in the Himalayas, someone who had hiked thousands of kilometers on mountain trails, who understood the risks, who was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, who were these people? Hikers from the United Kingdom, Germany, and Mexico. They were hiking the O Circuit, a circular route around the Torres del Paine Massif in Patagonia, one of the most scenic treks in South America, beautiful, popular, and usually safe. The O Circuit doesn't require a mandatory guide. This isn't mountaineering, it's trekking, a well-marked trail, equipped campsites, a clear route. People come here with standard gear, backpacks, tents, sleeping bags, trekking boots, no special high-altitude equipment. The British group, 5 people, including Victoria Bond. They're described as semi-experienced hikers, people with a decent amount of experience. They'd already hiked trails in the Himalayas. They knew about altitude. They understood how to deal with the weather. They weren't beginners. There was a German couple, a Mexican couple. They were moving independently of the British group. Each group had its own pace, its own plan, but they were all tackling the same section, the stretch between the Los Perros campsite and the John Garner Pass. This is the key part of the O Circuit, the most difficult, the most exposed. A climb of 1,200 meters. The pass is open to winds blowing in from the southern Patagonian ice field, a massive sheet of ice that creates its own weather system. When the wind comes from there, it meets no obstacles. It accelerates. It intensifies. It hits you in the face with enough force to knock you off your feet. The temperature plummets instantly. The snow turns into horizontal needles. Visibility vanishes. The pass becomes a white void. The Los Perros campsite is the last stop before this treacherous section. It's where hikers spend the night before attempting the pass. This is where they're supposed to get weather information. It's where they have to make the call, to go or to wait. In mid-November, it's springtime in Patagonia. The weather windows are short. Storms can form in a matter of hours. It can be sunny in the morning and a full-blown hurricane by the afternoon. Forecasts are often wrong. The weather changes faster than meteorologists can update their data. There aren't any rangers permanently stationed on the O Circuit Trail. Control depends on the weather forecast and the decisions made by the campsite staff. If the staff says go, people go. If they say wait, people wait. The system runs on trust and the experience of the local staff. November 14th and 15th. The British group and the other hikers make their way to the Los Perros campsite. Everything is fine. The weather is holding. Spirits are high. They're on schedule. Tomorrow, the pass. Then the descent to the glacier and the final leg of the circuit. November 16th. The weather begins to turn. The wind is picking up. The clouds are rolling in. But the trail, it's still open. There are no rangers in the area. It's election day in Chile, so a lot of the national park staff are off duty. The camp staff is recommending an early start. The logic is simple. Leave at dawn, and you can make it over the pass before the weather turns completely. It's a small window, but it's there. The hikers make their decision. They get ready for an early start. November 17th. Morning. Around 30 people begin the climb up the John Garner Pass. The weather is manageable. There's a wind, but nothing critical. Visibility is good enough to see the trail. Conditions aren't perfect, but they're doable. The groups move with confidence. After 10 a.m., everything changes. The wind picks up suddenly, not gradually, instantly. Within minutes, the gusts are hitting 190 kilometers per hour, and even higher. That's hurricane force. A wind strong enough to knock you off your feet, to rip a backpack right off your shoulders. A wind that makes it impossible to even stand upright. Then the snow starts, thick, heavy, and horizontal. The snow isn't falling down, it's flying sideways, straight into your face. It's impossible to open your eyes, impossible to breathe without something covering your face. You can't see more than 2 or 3 meters in front of you. A whiteout, total whiteout. The ground and sky blend into a single white void. There are no landmarks, no horizon, no sense of up or down. Your brain loses its anchor. People start to lose their balance. They fall. They have no idea which way to go. Some of the groups manage to turn back. They're still close to the camp. They see what's happening and make the call to retreat. They head back, slowly. Clinging to one another, they make it to Los Perros. They're safe, but the others are already higher up. They've already gained significant elevation. They're further from safety. When the whiteout hits, they lose the trail. They lose their bearings. They lose each other. Scattered across a 1 or 2 kilometer area around the pass, the hikers are broken up into small, isolated groups. A group from Britain, a German couple, a couple from Mexico. They can't see each other. They shout, but the wind just swallows their voices. They try to find shelter, but there is none. They try to head down, but they have no idea which way that is. The temperature plummets. The wind strips heat from the body in an instant. The wind chill effect turns -5 degrees into -30. Their clothes are getting soaked by the snow. Wet fabric loses all its insulating properties. The body starts losing heat faster than it can generate it. Hypothermia sets in. Stage 1, shivering. The body is trying to warm itself up. Muscles contract, generating heat. But that burns energy. It burns calories. Calories they just don't have. Stage 2, confusion. Coordination fails. Speech becomes slurred. They start making irrational decisions. Stage 3, apathy. A person stops fighting. They lie down. They fall asleep. And they don't wake up. The evening of November 17th, back at the Los Perros camp, they realize several people haven't made it back. There's no contact with them. No known coordinates. And the weather is too severe for helicopters to fly. Official rescue teams are grounded, so a spontaneous search party is formed. The surviving hikers, including those who had turned back earlier, start organizing their own teams. Among them are doctors, people with experience. They head out into the storm, pushing upward, shouting, shining their flashlights, searching. They find the first one, critical condition, hypothermia, unconscious. They carry them down, trying to warm them up. A second, a third. Their condition worsens with the cold, with every passing moment. The bodies are found on different parts of the slope, hundreds of meters apart. 2 people are still alive when they are found, but they're in critical condition. 3 are already dead. They died from hypothermia, from the cold, the wind, from being unable to find shelter or a way down. Victoria Bond is among the dead, a British climber with Himalayan experience, someone who knew the mountains, who understood the risks, who did everything right. But she was trapped by the weather and the circumstances. Helicopters join the effort later, once the wind dies down a bit. They evacuate the bodies. They evacuate the survivors. The operation comes to an end. The final toll is taken. 5 dead, several with injuries and frostbite, dozens in shock. Authorities in the Magallanes region launch an investigation. The questions are obvious. Why wasn't the trail closed? Why were there no rangers in the area on that critical day? Why were tourists allowed onto the route without any warning? The survivors give their accounts. They claim there were no warnings about the trail being closed. The camp staff had recommended they start early in the morning. There was no one monitoring the route. No one rechecked the forecast. No one was stopping groups at the start of the climb. The park's entire operation came under scrutiny. Tourists were asking the same questions. Why wasn't the route closed in advance? And why were there no rangers on duty that day? The tragedy sparks a debate about safety reforms. Real-time weather monitoring, mandatory guides on critical sections, rangers on permanent duty, closing routes at the slightest sign of risk. But the debates drag on. Changes are implemented slowly, and Torres del Paine continues to welcome tourists. The O circuit remains open. The John Garner Pass awaits the next group of hikers. The main takeaway from this story is a harsh one. On remote trails, the deadliest threat isn't the summit, but the systemic failures of the organization behind it. Not the altitude, not the technical terrain, but a lack of oversight, a lack of information, a lack of responsible people in the right place at the right time. Victoria Bond and 4 other hikers didn't die because they couldn't handle it, not because they were inexperienced, not because they made a critical mistake. They died because the system failed, because they were allowed onto a trail on a day when it should have been closed, because the rangers weren't at their posts, because the weather was underestimated. Patagonia is famous for its storms. The winds here regularly reach hurricane force. The weather can turn in an instant. This isn't a secret. Everyone who works in Torres del Paine knows this. The guides know it, the rangers know it, and the people who made the decision not to close the trail on the 17th of November should have known it. But the decision was made. The hikers set out. The storm hit them on the pass. 5 of them never came back. Torres del Paine remains one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and the O Circuit, one of the world's greatest trekking routes. The John Garner Pass is a must-do for anyone wanting to complete the full circuit. Thousands of people cross it every year. Most of them make it through just fine. But on November the 17th, 2025, 5 people died on that pass. Because the system failed, because there was no oversight, because the organizational failures proved deadlier than the mountain itself. Story 8. Alexander Pancoe, Makalu, May 2025. Makalu, Nepal, Camp 2, at an altitude of 6,700 meters. 2 men are sitting in a tent, talking, discussing the next day's climb, and then, suddenly, one of them goes silent. Just stops talking. His eyes are open, but his gaze is empty. His guide grabs him by the shoulders, shakes him, shouts his name. No response. Resuscitation begins. 3 hours of chest compressions, artificial respiration, desperate attempts to bring him back. It's no use. Alexander Pancoe is dead. 39 years old. A cancer survivor. A man who had conquered the 7 summits and both poles. He died in a tent. For no apparent reason. His heart just stopped. This is a story about how mountaineering becomes a way to conquer death, and about how death finds you anyway. Even at altitude, even after a triumph, even when you've done the impossible. Let's start in Chicago, in the 1980s. Alexander grows up a normal kid. School, friends, games, plans for the future. And then, the diagnosis. A cerebellar tumor, brain cancer, as a child. It's a sentence that few people come back from. Surgery, complicated, dangerous. But the doctors remove the tumor, a millimeter in the wrong direction, and you could be left disabled, or not survive at all. But Alexander gets lucky. The surgery is a success. The tumor is gone. He survives. The recovery is long, months of rehabilitation, learning to walk again, rebuilding his coordination, his balance, his strength. Slowly he returns to a normal life. He finishes school, goes to university. He lives. But cancer leaves a mark, not just a physical one, a psychological one. You've survived something that kills most people. You look death in the eye as a kid. That changes your perception. It changes your priorities. A normal life seems insufficient. You need something more, something meaningful, something that proves you're alive for a reason. Alexander finds mountaineering, not right away. First, it's trekking, hiking in the mountains. Then, the first summits, small ones, then higher. He realizes this is it. This is where you feel truly alive, where every breath matters, where you're conquering not just the mountain, but yourself. He sets a goal, the Explorer's Grand Slam, the 7 highest summits on each continent, plus both the North and South Poles. Everest, Aconcagua, Denali, Kilimanjaro, Elbrus, Vinson Massif, Karsten's Pyramid, the North Pole, the South Pole, 9 points on the planet, extreme, dangerous, requiring years of preparation. Alexander methodically works towards his goal, continent by continent, summit by summit. South America, Aconcagua, Africa, Kilimanjaro, North America, Denali, Europe, Elbrus, Antarctica, Vinson Massif, Asia, Everest, Oceania, Karsten's Pyramid, the Arctic, the North Pole, Antarctica, the South Pole, 9. All 9 of them, the Grand Slam is complete, a triumph, a testament. The boy who survived brain cancer had conquered the world. But the story doesn't end there, because a new diagnosis comes along, chronic myeloid leukemia, a cancer of the blood. It gradually crowds out the healthy cells. Without treatment, it's a death sentence. With treatment, it's manageable, but not curable. Alexander begins treatment. He gets the disease under control, regular checkups. Doctors keep a close watch. His condition is stable. He can live with it. But the diagnosis never goes away. Chronic myeloid leukemia doesn't just disappear. It's simply dormant for now. And so, Alexander makes a decision. He will keep going. He will keep climbing. He will live life to the absolute fullest. Because if life had taught him anything, it was that tomorrow is never guaranteed. You have to seize the day. He decides to combine his climbing with charity. Every single ascent becomes a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital in Chicago, the same one where he had his surgery as a kid, the one that saved his life. He's paying it forward, raising tens of thousands of dollars, helping kids who are going through the same battle he once fought. The year is 2025. Alexander sets his sights on Makalu, the fifth highest mountain on the planet. 8,485 meters. It's a technically challenging climb. Steep slopes, treacherous ice falls. Not the most popular peak, but undeniably one of the most beautiful. He's climbing with Madison Mountaineering and Himalayan guides. Nepal. These are top-tier companies, experienced teams. They follow every procedure to the letter. He passes his medical evaluation. The doctors give him the green light. His condition is stable. He's cleared to climb. The acclimatization follows the standard protocol. Base camp at 5,000 meters, Camp 1 at 6,000, Camp 2 at 6,700. They climb up, then back down, climb higher, then descend again. It's how the body adapts to the altitude, preparing for the final summit push. May 4th, the team makes it to Camp 2. The goal is to get ready for the next push, up to Camp 3, into the death zone. They'll move up tomorrow or the day after. But today is about rest, regaining their strength. That evening, Alexander is in his tent with his guide, Terry Sylvester. A seasoned climber, countless ascents under his belt. A man you can trust. They're talking, going over the plan, the weather, the route, how he's feeling. Alexander says he feels fine, tired, sure. The altitude is taking its toll. But that's to be expected. 6,700 meters is no joke. And then, suddenly, he goes quiet, mid-sentence. Terry looks over at him. Alexander? No response. His eyes are open, but his gaze is vacant. The color drains from his face. He's not breathing. Terry knows instantly. His heart. He lays Alexander flat on his back and starts chest compressions. At 6,700 meters, this is an almost impossible task. The air is thin. It's hard enough just to breathe, let alone perform CPR. The physical toll is immense. His arms burn. His own breath catches in his throat. But Terry doesn't stop. Other team members rush to help. They take turns. One person performs compressions until they're exhausted. Then another takes over. For 3 straight hours, they try to resuscitate him. 3 hours of fighting to bring him back to life. But there's no pulse. He isn't breathing. His pupils don't respond to light. Alexander is gone. Sudden cardiac arrest. Unexplained. It happened in his tent, in the middle of a conversation. The team is in shock. Moments ago, he was alive. He was talking. He was planning the climb for the next day. And then, death. Instant. Without warning. For no apparent reason. What happened? Cardiac arrest. That much is certain. But why? The altitude, the exertion, myeloid leukemia, a combination of factors. We'll never know for sure. You can't perform an autopsy at 6,700 meters. Bringing the body down for examination is impossible. It's just too dangerous. Ice falls, steep slopes. The risk to the living is far too great. The expedition operators make a decision. The body stays on the mountain. The official cause of death is listed as a presumed cardiac arrest. There's no confirmed diagnosis. And there never will be. Madison Mountaineering releases a statement. Alexander Pancoe died at Camp 2 on Makalu. Resuscitation efforts continued for 3 hours. He could not be saved. Condolences to the family. The media picks up the story. A man who beat cancer twice, who completed the Explorer's Grand Slam, who raised money for sick children, dead on an 8,000er, suddenly, in his tent. It's a tragedy. It's an injustice. It's a shock. The climbing community is buzzing with debate. Should people with serious medical conditions be climbing 8,000ers? Was this a mistake? Or was it his right to live life on his own terms? Opinions are split. Some say it was irresponsible. Chronic myeloid leukemia, high altitude, extreme exertion. It was a recipe for disaster. Others argue back. He passed a medical check. Doctors gave him the green light. His condition was stable. He had the right to take that risk. A third group points out that sudden cardiac arrest can happen to anyone, even a perfectly healthy person. At that altitude, the body is pushed to its absolute limit. The heart beats faster, blood pressure rises, the blood thickens, the slightest malfunction, and it's over. The truth is, no one knows for sure. Maybe the leukemia played a role. Maybe it was the altitude. Maybe a combination of both. Or maybe it was just bad luck. Sometimes a heart just stops. For no apparent reason, even at sea level. And at 6,700 meters, the chances are just higher. Alexander Pancoe's story isn't just a tragedy. It's a question. Where is the line between living life to the fullest and taking an irresponsible risk? When does courage become recklessness? Does a person with a chronic illness have the right to take on extreme challenges? Alexander had answered that for himself. Yes, I do. I will live at maximum capacity. Because I've already beaten death twice. Because I know that tomorrow might not come. Because I want to prove to myself, and to the world, that a diagnosis is not a death sentence. And he did prove it. The Grand Slam, the 8,000ers, the charity work, hundreds of thousands of dollars for sick children. A life filled with meaning. But the price was steep. 6,700 meters, Camp 2 on Makalu, a sudden cardiac arrest, 3 hours of resuscitation, a life of 39 years. It all ended in a tent, while talking about the next day's climb. Story 9. Victory Peak, Natalia Nagovitsina, 7,140 meters above sea level. Natalia Nagovitsina is lying under a rock on the ridge of Pobedy Peak with a shattered leg. Around her, there is nothing but wind, ice, and the void. Her partner has gone down for help. She is alone, in a zone from which no one has ever been evacuated alive. The year is 2025, August. But this story doesn't start here. It begins 4 years earlier, on this very same mountain, in 2021. Natalia Nagovitsina is climbing Pobedy Peak alongside her husband Sergei. They're not beginners. They're both seasoned climbers. They know the route, they know the risks, they know what they're getting into. At an altitude of around 6,800 meters, Sergei dies. The details are unknown. Mountains don't explain, they just take. Natalia is rescued, brought back down. She returns home, alone. For 4 years she lives with the pain, with the memory, with that sense of something left unfinished. But Natalia doesn't give up climbing. She returns to the mountains, systematically, methodically. She has a goal: the Snow Leopard Award. The Snow Leopard is a prestigious award in Soviet and Russian mountaineering. It's given to those who've summited all the 7,000-meter peaks of the former USSR. Lenin Peak, Kangchenjunga, Communism Peak, Pobeda Peak, Korzhenevskaya Peak. These aren't just climbs, they're a test of endurance, of perseverance, of the will to come back time and time again. Natalia has already summited Kangchenjunga, one of the most beautiful 7,000-meter peaks in the world. She even took part in a rescue operation back in 2021. She knows altitude, she knows risk, she knows the price of a single mistake. Pobeda Peak is the last one on her list. The mountain that took Sergei, the mountain she has to go back to, not to forget, but to finish what they started together. In 2025, Natalia puts a team together. There's Roman Makrinsky, a Russian climber with high-altitude experience. Then Luca Sinigaglia, an Italian she'd already climbed Kangchenjunga with. They know each other, they trust each other. And Gunter Sigmund, another seasoned climber. 4 people, 1 goal, 1 mountain, Pobeda Peak, standing at 7,439 meters. It's the highest point in the Tian Shan, a mountain range stretching across Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and China. On a map, it looks majestic. In reality, it kills. It is the most dangerous peak in the entire former Soviet Union. It's not the highest. There are taller mountains, but it is the deadliest. The accident rate on Pobeda Peak is higher than on any other peak in the post-Soviet space. Climbers know this, and still, they go. So, why is the mountain so dangerous? It's not just about the altitude. 7,500 meters is high, but not unheard of. Everest is higher. Cho Oyu is higher. It's something else. It's the ridge. Stretching between the main summit of Pobeda Peak and the neighboring Vazapshavala Peak is a long, knife-edge ridge, several kilometers of technically difficult, exposed terrain. In some places, the ridge is so narrow you're literally walking on a knife's edge. It's half a meter wide, sometimes less. To your right, a drop of thousands of meters. To your left, the exact same thing. Under your feet, ice, snow, and loose, crumbling rock. The wind hits you in the face at up to 100 kilometers an hour, sometimes more. Gusts of wind can knock you off your feet, hurl you into the void. Carrying an injured person here, it's not just difficult, it's impossible. Physically impossible. The ridge is so narrow and technical, everyone moves on their own, anchoring themselves, relying on their ice axe, one person after another, slowly, carefully. If you fall, if you so much as injure your leg, you stay right where you are. Your teammates can't carry you. They can't drag you. They can't lower you on ropes. The terrain makes it impossible. You're left behind. You wait for help. Or you don't. Rescue operations above 7,000 meters require a specialized helicopter. A standard helicopter could try to make the climb, but the risk is enormous. The air is thin. There's almost no lift. You've got unpredictable wind gusts, turbulence. One wrong move, and the pilot loses all control. On Pobeda Peak, the weather windows are incredibly short. The wind can change in minutes. It can be dead calm in the morning and a full-blown hurricane an hour later. Visibility vanishes in an instant. The temperature plummets to -40. High-altitude helicopters exist, but there are very few of them, and even they can't always operate in these conditions. The section of the ridge where Natalia will end up is considered the death zone, a place from which there have been no successful evacuations. If you're injured there, you stay there forever. On August 12, 2025, the group begins their summit push. 4 climbers make their way onto the ridge. The weather is acceptable. Visibility is good. The plan is clear. Reach the summit and get back down before the weather turns. Luca Sinigaglia loses a glove. At an altitude of nearly 7,000 meters, this is a catastrophe. His hand freezes in minutes. His fingers go numb. Frostbite sets in instantly. Continuing the ascent is pointless and dangerous. Luca stays behind in a snow cave at about 6,900 meters. He waits for his teammates to return. He warms his hand as best he can, fighting through the pain. The others push on. Gunter Zygmunt is moving the fastest. He's the first to reach the summit. Natalia and Roman are climbing more slowly. They started later, moving at their own pace. They know they're pushing past the safe time window, but they keep going. The summit is close. The goal is right there. And then the descent begins. And this is where it all falls apart. Roman slips. The first time. Natalia belays him, holds him. He gets back up. He continues down. He slips again. The second time. Again, Natalia holds him. The rope goes taut. Roman stops himself. Gets up. A third fall. Natalia tries to hold her partner. And this time, she falls too. The rope yanks her off her feet. She loses her balance. She slides down the ice, hitting rocks. She comes to a stop, but her leg is badly injured. The altitude, 7,140 meters. The death zone, a place from which no one returns. Natalia can't walk. Her leg is severely damaged. Every movement is agony. Roman can't carry her. The ridge is too narrow, the terrain too complex. Even if he tried, they would both die. The only option is for him to descend, raise the alarm, and bring back help, to organize an evacuation. Roman leaves Natalia sheltered by a rock and begins his descent. Natalia is left alone, at 7,140 meters, with a severe leg injury, a thin tent that offers little protection from the wind. The temperature is dropping. Tonight, it will be -30, maybe -40. There's very little oxygen. Every breath is an effort. The brain works slower. Thoughts become confused. On August 13th, Luca and Gunter start climbing up to Natalia. They carry everything they can: a better tent, a warm sleeping bag, food, gas canisters for the stove, water, and medical supplies. They give her a hot drink, get her into a sleeping bag, and set up the tent. They're doing everything they possibly can. They stay with her for the night. They don't leave her. That night, the wind picks up. Gusts tear at the tent, the fabric whips and snaps. Snow starts blowing inside, the temperature drops even lower. They realize they can't last long up here. In the morning, the order comes down. Descend. The rescue team below is organizing an operation. They need to clear the ridge to give the helicopter a chance to work. Luca and Gunther have to leave. Natalia is left behind. Alone again. Luca and Gunther begin their descent to the snow cave. With every passing hour, Luca feels worse. The altitude is crushing him. His body is exhausted. His headache intensifies. Nausea sets in. Confusion. These are the signs of high-altitude cerebral edema, one of the most dangerous conditions in the mountains. The brain swells. Pressure inside the skull builds. A person loses coordination, stops thinking clearly. If you don't descend immediately, death is inevitable. On August 16th, Luca Sinigaglia dies in the snow cave, an Italian climber, Natalia's friend, the man who climbed Kangchenjunga with her, who came here to help her achieve her dream, who lost his glove and stayed behind to wait, who climbed up to her with a tent and food, who did everything he could. Gunther continues his descent. Every step is a struggle, but he keeps moving down, towards people. Rescuers find him further down the route. They bring him up to the camp, give him first aid, but they can't get to Natalia. The ridge is impassable. The weather is getting worse. The wind is growing stronger. The Ministry of Defense of Kyrgyzstan decides to scramble a military helicopter. It's an attempt to evacuate the climbers from the mountain, a risky operation. The altitude, the wind, the thin air. But there's no other choice. The helicopter takes off. It gains altitude, heading for the mountain. At around 4,000 meters, it hits a zone of turbulence. The aircraft is thrown about. The pilot loses control. A hard landing. The crew and rescuers suffer serious injuries. The helicopter is damaged. The flight cannot continue. The operation is a failure. But the rescuers don't give up. Some of them, despite their injuries and pain, start heading up on foot. They find Roman and Gunther. They bring them down to base camp. They give them medical attention. They save their lives. But Natalia is still up there, at 7,000 meters, alone. With every passing hour, her chances are fading. The rescuers launch a drone. The unmanned aircraft flies towards the ridge. Its camera locks onto the tent. It's the 5th day since her fall. On the screen, there's movement. Natalia is alive. She sees the drone. She waves her arm. She's signaling. She's holding on. She's fighting. She's waiting. The rescuers know she's alive, but time is working against her. Every hour at this altitude is a slow process of decay. The body can't function normally. Muscles atrophy. The lungs fill with fluid. The brain is starved of oxygen. The body is literally dying, piece by piece. On August 19th, the drone flies up to the ridge again. The camera shows a destroyed tent. The wind has ripped the fly sheet. The fabric is flapping in the wind. There's no movement, no signs of life. It's impossible to know if Natalia is still alive. The camera can't see anymore. Italy offers to help. They're ready to send in an Airbus helicopter with high-altitude pilots. This is a specialized machine built to operate at extreme elevations. The pilots have experience with rescue missions in the Alps and the Himalayas. But the weather shuts down every option. The window is too short. The wind is too strong. Visibility is zero. The risk to the crew is just too high. Even the best pilots with the best equipment can't fly in these conditions. Climbing teams try to make their way up the ridge on foot. Experienced climbers are willing to take the risk, to get to Natalia, to try and help. But a blizzard stops them in their tracks. Deep, fresh snow. Visibility is less than a meter. Every step is a risk of falling. Every minute puts more lives in danger. On August 23rd, the rescue operation is officially called off. The Kyrgyz authorities release a statement. Reaching the injured climber is impossible under the current conditions. The weather, the terrain, the altitude. Everything is against them. Continuing the operation would endanger the lives of the rescuers. In these conditions, a rescue is impossible. Natalia Nagovitsina remains on Pobedy Peak. Officials state her body may not be recoverable until the spring of 2026, or it might never be found at all. The wind could have blown the tent right off the ridge. The snow could have buried it under a thick layer of ice. Luca Sinigaglia is dead. Gunther Siegmund and Roman Makrinsky are hospitalized. The pilot and rescuer from the crashed helicopter suffered serious injuries. They all face a long road to recovery. One summit attempt, one lost glove, one fall, one severe injury. A chain reaction of catastrophe that cost lives and left others wounded. Natalia is officially listed as missing, presumed dead. She came to Pobedy Peak to complete the Snow Leopard Award, to get the one pin missing from her collection, to honor the memory of Sergei, her husband, who died on this very mountain 4 years earlier. She knew the risks, understood the danger, she'd seen the statistics, but she went anyway. Story 10. Balin Scott Miller, El Capitan, the fall of 2025, Yosemite, California. A 20-year-old kid is hanging on the face of El Capitan, alone, 900 meters above the ground. For more than a month, he's been living up here, in an orange tent tethered to the rock. He's almost finished the route. All that's left is to haul his gear and top out. He rappels down the rope to free a snagged haul bag. The rope ends, but he keeps going down. He slips. He falls. 900 meters. Death is instantaneous. This is the story of Balin Scott Miller, 23 years old, a soloist on ice and rock, a guy who lived out of his car just so he could climb big walls, who sent routes others only dream of, who died from the simplest of mistakes. Because in climbing, there are no small things. There are only details, and everything depends on them. Let's start in Alaska, 2002. Anchorage. Balin grows up in a family where mountains are just normal. Not some exotic adventure, just normal. He's surrounded by rock, ice, snow. As a kid, he's already scrambling up cliffs along the Seward Highway. Short routes, top roping. It's more of a game than a sport, but it's a game that pulls you in. In high school, Balin is juggling 3 passions: rock climbing in the summer, ice climbing in the winter, backcountry skiing whenever he could fit it in. By the time he finished high school, he wasn't just a hobbyist. He was a serious climber, with dozens of routes already under his belt. After high school, the choice was simple: university or the mountains. Balin chose the mountains. He lived out of his car, worked seasonal jobs, a guide in the summer, an instructor in the winter. Just enough money for food and gear. Nothing else mattered. The American Alpine Club took notice. He was young, talented, and progressing fast. They started giving him grants, small amounts for technical projects, and Balin put every single dollar to use. Ropes, carabiners, pythons, minimum comfort, maximum climbing. By 2022, 2024, he was a world-class solo climber. Soloing, that's when you're all alone. No partner, no support. It's just you, the wall, and your rope. You climb a pitch, you fix your rope, you rappel down to get your gear, you haul the gear up, then you climb back up the rope. You're climbing every section 3 times. It's slow, grueling, and psychologically brutal. You spend weeks on the wall, you sleep in a portaledge, a hanging platform tied to the rock face. You eat out of bags, rain, wind, cold. You just endure it. Because the alternative is to go down, to abandon the route, to admit defeat. And Balin doesn't quit. He puts up routes on Denali, the highest peak in North America. He climbs walls in Patagonia, a region at the southern tip of South America, famous for its brutal winds and terrible weather. He scales the ice of Alaska, vertical frozen waterfalls that you climb with ice axes and crampons. In Yosemite, they know him as the guy with the orange tent. His bright portaledge is visible from miles away. Telescopes in the valley are trained on him. Tourists watch his progress. Someone is up there, living on the wall, moving slowly upward, day after day. El Capitan isn't just a rock, it's an icon. 900 meters of vertical granite, smooth, hard, and unforgiving. The first ascent, back in 1958, took 45 days. Today the speed record is under 2 hours, but that's for teams with support from below. For a soloist, the timeline is different. Weeks, months. There are dozens of routes on El Cap. They range from relatively straightforward to extremely difficult. Sea of Dreams is one of the hardest. It's rated A4 for aid climbing. That means you're not climbing with your hands and feet. You're hammering tiny hooks, called pitons, into hairline cracks. You hang fabric ladders, called aiders from them. You step up, you reach higher, you place the next piece, and you repeat. The placements are sketchy, the cracks are shallow, the granite is solid. One wrong swing of the hammer, and the hook could pop out. Or the crack could widen. Your anchor is unreliable. If you fall, you're going to fly until you hit your last solid piece of gear. That could be a meter, it could be 10, it could be 20. In the fall of 2025, Balin begins his solo attempt on Sea of Dreams, alone. The orange portalige on his back, all his gear with him, food, water, ropes, pitons. The load is about 100 kilograms. He has to haul it up, pitch by pitch. Everything is packed into a huge haul bag. The weeks go by. Balin moves slowly upward, section by section, anchor by anchor. And in the valley below, people watch through their telescopes. The orange dot is moving, so he's alive. He's still pushing forward. He's on the final stretch of the route, smooth slabs of rock just below the summit. It's technically challenging. The hooks barely hold. Balin makes it through the section and anchors himself to the station. Now, it's time to pull up the haul bag, a standard procedure. Rope through a pulley and you haul the bag up, foot by foot, but the bag gets stuck. It's snagged on a ledge somewhere below, or maybe the rope is tangled. Balin pulls. The bag won't budge. He pulls harder. It's no use. He'll have to go down, free it by hand. He grabs his rappel device, clips it to the rope, and starts to lower himself. Slowly, controlling his speed. His eyes scan the wall, searching for the snagged bag. He rappels lower, and lower still. And this is where something happens that should never happen. There's no knot at the end of the rope, a stopper knot. It's a simple bulky knot tied at the very end of your rope. It physically prevents the rope from slipping through the rappel device. If you rappel to the end, the knot jams in the device. It stops your descent. It saves your life. But Balin's rope doesn't have one. Maybe he forgot to tie it. Maybe it came undone. Or maybe he just thought he had enough rope to spare. We'll never know for sure. Balin continues his descent. He's focused on the bag. Where is that thing? Ah, there it is, just a little further. His eyes are looking down, at the wall, at the bag, not at his device, not at his rope. And then, the rope runs out. The end slips right through his rappel device. He loses all control. A fall. An uncontrolled plummet, 900 meters to the valley floor. Death was instantaneous. Down in the valley, people watching through telescopes see it happen. The orange dot was on the wall. And then it was gone. Then someone spots something at the base of the cliff. They focus their cameras. They realize what's happened. They call the rangers. The Yosemite Rangers are dispatched immediately. A search and rescue operation is launched. But this isn't a rescue. It's a recovery. Balin Scott Miller is dead. He was 23 years old, one of America's best young solo climbers, killed by a forgotten knot. The news rips through the climbing forums within hours. Shock, disbelief. How could this happen? This was a guy who had conquered some of the world's toughest routes. The ice of Alaska, the walls of Patagonia, Denali, El Capitan multiple times. And he died from such a basic mistake, but that's just it. Experienced climbers often don't die on the hardest parts of a climb. They die on the easy parts. During routine actions they've performed hundreds of times, because that's when you let your guard down. You lose focus. You think, this is easy, I've got this. Experts point to fatigue. He'd been on the wall for over a month. The physical and mental exhaustion is immense. You're doing the same things over and over and over. Your body goes on autopilot. Your brain checks out. And that's when mistakes happen. In the aftermath, the climbing community doubles down on the importance of stopper knots. It's not a recommendation. It's a hard and fast rule. Every rope, every rappel, a knot at the end. Always. No exceptions. Because the cost of a mistake is your life. Sea of Dreams remains one of the most dangerous solo projects on El Capitan. It's rated A4. That means questionable protection points, long, grueling stints at each anchor, and immense psychological pressure. Not many people can handle it, but Balin was handling it. He almost made it to the top. Almost. His achievements still stand. The routes on Denali, in Alaska, in Patagonia, dozens of major ascents, soloing the world's toughest walls. 23 years old, and he'd already done more than most people do in a lifetime. But it's not just his achievements that will be remembered, it's the ending. How a gifted climber died from the simplest of mistakes. How a forgotten knot cost him his life. How 900 meters of granite offer no forgiveness for a moment's lapse in concentration. The story of Balin Scott Miller is a lesson, a harsh one, a painful one, an unfair one, but a lesson nonetheless. In mountaineering, there are no small details. Every knot matters. Every check is critical. Every second of focus can be the last thing standing between life and death. The orange tent no longer hangs from the wall. Balin is no longer climbing, but his story will remain, as a reminder, as a warning, as the price of one simple mistake on 900 meters of granite. Story 11. Aoraki, Mount Cook, the fall of a guide-client rope team. Midnight, at an altitude of 3,500 meters. The west ridge of Aoraki slices the sky like a narrow line of ice. Two rope teams are moving toward the summit, the guide in front, the client behind. A taut rope connects them. Step. Another step. The sound of breathing, the crunch of crampons on frozen snow. 11:50 p.m., one of the rope teams falls from the ridge and vanishes into the darkness. Two people falling. The guide, one of New Zealand's most experienced professionals. The client, an American lawyer who had entrusted this man with his life. The second team is still on the route. They see it happen. They understand. They press the button on their emergency beacon. And so begins one of the most high-profile rescue operations of the season. But before we get into what happened that night, we need to understand who these men were and why they were there. Thomas Vial, in his early 40s, a Frenchman, a professional mountain guide with an IFMGA certification, the highest qualification in the world of mountaineering, a member of the New Zealand Mountain Guides Association, co-owner of a company that organizes expeditions all over the globe. 15 years in the profession, not 15 years as a weekend hobby, 15 years of work. The Alps, Alaska, China, Australia, New Zealand, hundreds of ascents, hundreds of clients, hundreds of safe returns home. In his youth, Thomas was part of France's national youth mountaineering team. From 2009 to 2012, he trained with ENAM FFME, an elite program. Only a select few get in. It's where they train the best of the best. Thomas made it through. He earned his qualification. He became a guide, and not just any guide, one of those people you trust with your life. His company operates worldwide. Clients come back to him again and again. In the climbing community, he was known as a level-headed professional, a man who didn't take unnecessary risks, someone who knew how to say no when the weather or conditions turned against them, who always put safety before ambition. Kellum Conover, 44 years old, a U.S. citizen, a lawyer at the international law firm King & Spalding, one of the largest in the world, a successful career, a family, and a passion for the mountains. Kellum was no novice. He had a proven track record of climbing. He'd already climbed with Thomas in Europe. He'd already been with him in the mountains of New Zealand. This wasn't their first route together. They knew each other. They understood each other. They trust each other. Kellum chose his guides carefully. He never cut corners on safety. He went with the best. And Thomas was one of the best. On November 24th, 2025, they're at Empress Hut, a mountain shelter at the foot of Aoraki. With them is another rope team, another guide, another client, 4 people, 2 teams. One goal, the Grand Traverse. The Grand Traverse is a classic route across Aoraki's 3 peaks, High Peak, Middle Peak, and Low Peak. It's technically difficult, beautiful, famous, dangerous. A ridge climb that demands precision, endurance, and a cool head. They're getting ready for a night start, checking their gear, discussing the plan, looking at the weather forecast. Everything looks good. The conditions are decent. They have a window. Aoraki. In the Maori language, the name means cloud piercer. Europeans call it Mount Cook, after Captain James Cook. 3,724 meters, the highest peak in New Zealand. But it's not about the height. Everest is higher. Denali is higher. Plenty of mountains are higher. It's about character. Aoraki is the country's most technical peak. The rules of other New Zealand mountains don't apply here. Every single meter demands focus, skill, and respect. The West Ridge is a narrow line between life and death. It's a mix of ice and snow, dotted with rock. It's highly exposed, a sheer drop to your right, a sheer drop to your left. There are minimal options for solid protection. Nowhere to place a screw, nowhere to build an anchor. You're walking on a knife's edge, one wrong step, and you're falling. The mixed terrain of ice and rock gives you no chance to stop. You fall, you pick up speed, you hit the outcrops. A self-arrest is nearly impossible. Experienced guides, the ones who lead clients all over the world, call Aoraki the most difficult objective in New Zealand's commercial mountaineering. Not the highest, the most difficult. There is no room for error here, none at all. You climb Aoraki at night. It's not a tradition, it's a necessity. As long as the frost holds the snow and ice together, the ridge is relatively stable, the surface is firm, crampons get a good bite, the cornices don't collapse. But when the sun comes up and starts to warm things, everything changes. The snow softens. The cornices become unpredictable. Rockfall becomes more frequent. The ice begins to melt. The route turns into a game of Russian roulette. That's why climbers set out at midnight. They move in the dark, and they return by dawn. On November 24th, shortly before midnight, both rope teams leave the hut. Thomas Vial is leading Kangchenjunga. The second guide is leading his client. It's the classic guide-client setup for technical routes. The guide goes first. He picks the line, he assesses the snow, he checks the ice, he determines the safest path. The client follows on the rope. The rope is kept taut. There are a few meters between them, maybe more, maybe less. It all depends on the technique, the terrain, and the guide's preference. They're moving along the West Ridge, heading for High Peak. Darkness all around. The beams of their headlamps cut cones into the night. Stars above, the abyss below. The sound of breathing, the crunch of crampons on frozen fern, the silence of the mountain. Everything is going according to plan. The weather is holding, the wind is manageable. Visibility is good. They're gaining altitude, moving with confidence, getting closer to the summit. 11:50 p.m. The rope team of Thomas Vial and Kangchenjunga falls from the ridge. What happened? No one knows. The exact cause of the fall remains a mystery. There's no data suggesting a sudden weather change. No recorded gust of wind strong enough to knock them off their feet. No information about a cornice collapse. There were no warning signs. The team simply falls, guide and client, together. One moment, they're on the ridge. The next, they're gone. The second rope team is still on the route, just a few dozen meters away. They see it. They hear it. They know something irreversible has just happened. One of them pulls out a personal locator beacon, a PLB. He hits the button. A signal is sent to the rescue teams. The clock starts ticking. New Zealand Search and Rescue responds instantly. They have the coordinates. The situation is clear. A helicopter is scrambled. A nighttime operation on Aoraki is rare. It's usually just too dangerous. Visibility issues, turbulence, the risk to the crew. But tonight, the conditions are favorable. A starry sky. The wind is relatively calm. Visibility is good. There's a window of opportunity, and the rescuers are taking it. The helicopter heads for the West Ridge. On board are professional alpine rescuers from the Department of Conservation. These are people who know Aoraki, people who have worked here for years. They understand the risks. 2:15 a.m. The rescuers reach the second team. The surviving guide and client are evacuated from the slope and brought down to the base. They're in shock. They watch their companions vanish into the darkness. The search for Thomas and Kellum continues. But at night, in the mountains, it's a near impossible task. The rescuers have to wait for dawn. The morning of November 25th, first light touches the summit of Aoraki. Visibility is improving. The Department of Conservation rescuers and helicopter crews return to the mountain. They know the approximate fall zone, and they begin the search. Around noon, the bodies of Thomas Vial and Kangchenjunga are found on the slope. The height of the fall, the nature of the terrain, there was no chance of survival. The recovery is completed by midday. The operation is closed. The New Zealand Mountain Guides Association and the Mountain Safety Council issue a joint statement. It speaks to the high objective dangers of Aoraki. It reminds us that even the most experienced professionals can't control every factor, that a mountain will always be a mountain, and that mountaineering is always a balance between skill and luck. An official technical investigation begins. The Guides Association and the coroner's office examine the circumstances of the fall. They gather witness statements, analyze the equipment, and reconstruct the timeline. The specific details of what caused the fall are not made public. This is standard procedure. The investigation could take months. In New Zealand and abroad, stories begin to emerge about Thomas Vial. Fellow guides remember him as one of the most dependable professionals in the country, a man who never took unnecessary risks, someone who knew how to read the weather, who always made calculated decisions. Clients write about how Thomas taught them the importance of safety, the way he focused on every single detail, how he built an atmosphere of trust, how he brought people home alive. Kellum Conover is remembered as a passionate climber and a successful lawyer, a man who found the perfect balance between his career and his passion for the mountains. He was someone who never cut corners on safety, who chose the very best guides, who went into the mountains with intention. Story 12. Iftikhar Hussain Sadpara, K2, July 18th, K2. A 4-person rope team makes its way across the glacier between Base Camp and Camp 1. Leading the way is Iftikhar Hussain Sadpara, a high-altitude porter from Pakistan. Behind him, 3 foreign climbers, clients. They're the ones paying for the ascent. The people Iftikhar is responsible for getting to the summit. They're at an altitude of about 5,700 meters. Looming over the route are enormous seracs, towers of ice, unstable, weakened by the daytime sun and fluctuating temperatures. It's late afternoon, a serac gives way. It triggers an avalanche. A torrent of snow and ice engulfs the rope team, dragging them hundreds of meters down the slope. The 3 clients end up on the surface, injured, in shock, but alive. Iftikhar remains under the snow, buried beneath a multi-ton layer of ice and snow, with no signs of life. To understand who this man was and why his death matters, you have to understand the system. Muhammad Iftikhar Hussain, from the village of Sadpara in the Skardu district of Pakistan, a place that has, for decades, produced the country's best high-altitude climbers and porters. Here, children grow up gazing at the 8,000ers. Here, boys don't dream of football, they dream of the mountains. They dream of becoming a HAP, a high-altitude porter. This isn't just a porter. This is someone who carries loads at altitudes where most people can barely breathe, who fixes ropes on dangerous sections, who sets up the camps, prepares the food, repairs the gear. They work in the death zone while the clients rest. Iftikhar specializes in the Karakoram, not Everest. K2, Broad Peak, the Gasher Brums. These are the most technically difficult and dangerous mountains in the world. There are no easy routes here. Every single meter demands strength and skill. For years, he's been climbing these peaks, season after season, expedition after expedition, carrying loads, setting up tents, fixing ropes, rescuing clients when they can't go on, carrying their packs when they're exhausted. He does the work that makes commercial mountaineering possible. His name is well known among expedition leaders. He gets invited back again and again. He's reliable, strong, experienced, one of the best in the region. But in the public eye, his name is virtually unknown. No media profiles, no interviews, no sponsors. Because porters don't sell stories. They sell their labor. Hard, dangerous, invisible labor. K2, 8,611 meters. The second highest peak in the world, but the most dangerous. Technically, the most demanding. The death rate is higher than on Everest. Much higher. The classic route follows the Abruzzi Spur. It's a siege-style climb with several intermediate camps. Base camp is at about 5,000 meters. Camp 1, 6,000. Camp 2, 6,700. And from there, it's only higher. The route from base camp to Camp 1 first crosses a glacier, then climbs a steep slope. Looming over the route are seracs, massive formations of ice towers soaring dozens of meters into the air. They're beautiful and deadly. Seracs are unstable. They move slowly, they crack, they collapse, especially with dramatic temperature swings. when the sun warms the ice by day, and at night, the frost freezes the water that seeped into the cracks. The ice expands, the tension grows. At some point, the Serac gives way. The summer of 2025 in the Karakoram has been defined by extreme temperature swings, scorching heat by day, bitter cold by night. The glaciers are behaving unpredictably. Routes change literally overnight. What was safe yesterday becomes a death trap today. The region has already seen its share of tragedy. Climbers have died on Nanga Parbat, several more on Laila Peak. They've started calling the season Black July. Too many deaths, too much unpredictability. The ice conditions are unstable. The local guides and porters feel it. They know the mountains. They know when something is wrong, but they're not the ones calling the shots. The decisions are made by the clients and the expedition leaders, the ones who pay the money, the ones who want the summit. July 18th, 2025. Iftikhar and a team of 3 foreign climbers set out from base camp. The goal, Camp 1. A standard acclimatization rotation. Climb up, spend the night, come down. Let the body adapt to the altitude. The group moves across the glacier. The path is familiar, traveled dozens of times. Iftikhar knows every rock, every crevasse. He leads with confidence. The clients follow him. The route then continues up a steeper slope. They're at about 5,700 meters. Overhead, the Seracs. Huge, overhanging. But it's part of the route. Everyone passes through here. There's no alternative. It's late afternoon. The sun has been beating down on the ice for hours. The temperature has risen. The snow has softened. In a Serac, somewhere high above, a crack forms. It widens. It reaches a critical point. A section of the Serac breaks off. Hundreds of tons of ice come crashing down. It shatters against the slope, turning into an avalanche. Snow, ice, debris, a powerful torrent that sweeps away everything in its path. The avalanche engulfs the rope team, Iftikhar and the 3 clients. It drags them down the slope, hundreds of meters, tumbling, impacts. Snow fills their mouths, noses, eyes. It's hard to breathe, impossible to tell which way is up. The avalanche stops. It settles, forming a cone of compressed snow and ice debris. The 3 clients find themselves on the surface, injured, bruised, possible fractures, in shock, but alive. They can move. Iftikhar is nowhere to be seen. He's under the snow, buried beneath a multi-ton layer that's been compressed into a solid mass. The clients shout. They call his name. They dig with their bare hands. It's useless. The snow is hard, thick. Without tools, they can't dig him out. They make the decision to descend to the advanced base camp, to report the avalanche, to raise the alarm, to call for help. They head down, slowly, in pain. But they keep going. At advanced base camp, the alarm is raised. The message is relayed to the main base camp. A rescue team is assembled. Pakistani porters and Sherpas from various expeditions. Anyone who can help. They grab probes, shovels, ropes, and start heading up. On the slope, they find the avalanche debris, a massive pile of compacted snow and chunks of ice, meters deep. The search begins with probing. They plunge a probe into the snow. Check. Plunge again. And again. After several hours, a probe hits something hard beneath the snow. Not a rock, a body. They start digging, with shovels, with their bare hands, carefully, layer by layer. They find Iftikhar under 1.5 meters of snow. No signs of life. Only an autopsy will determine the exact cause. But the outcome is the same. He's dead. They prepare the body for transport. It's wrapped, secured to a stretcher, and lowered down the route to a zone a helicopter can reach. They work until dark and then through the night. By morning, the body is down. July 19th. The Army's Askari Aviation Service attempts a difficult extraction. High altitude, thin air, unpredictable gusts of wind, a dangerous operation. But they pull it off, they recover the body. The helicopter flies Iftikhar to the military hospital in Skardu. There, his death is formally confirmed. The necessary paperwork is filed. Then, transport is arranged to his home village, Sadpara, for the funeral. Memorial services are held in Skardu and Sadpara, Iftikhar is buried as a hero, as his family's breadwinner, as a man who did what he had to do, who went into the mountains because it was his job, who died doing that job. The Alpine Club of Pakistan publishes an obituary. Officials express their condolences, calling Iftikhar a source of national pride, a symbol of Pakistani mountaineering, the kind of man without whom foreign climbers would never have reached the top. Iftikhar's death becomes a symbol of invisible labor, the work of the people who make the success of foreign clients possible, the ones who carry the loads, fix the ropes, set up the camps, risk their lives, and get paid pennies compared to the fees the clients pay. The 2025 season on K2 and in the Karakoram will be remembered as Black July, a high death toll, so many tragedies, especially among the local workers, the porters, the Sherpas, the cooks, the ones who do the heavy lifting, the ones who aren't in the summit photos, the ones who don't make the headlines. Story 13. Subrata Ghosh and Philip II Santiago, Everest. May 2025. Mount Everest. Two men climbed to the top of the world. Two commercial expeditions, two successful ascents, and two deaths. One dies on the descent, the other, even earlier, in his tent, without ever taking a single step back down. These are the first two deaths of the 2025 season on Everest. These are the stories of Subrata Ghosh from India and Philip II Santiago from the Philippines. Two men who bought a spot on an Everest expedition. They trained. They paid tens of thousands of dollars. They climbed into the death zone, and they never came back. Because on Everest, the summit isn't the point. Getting back down is. The first thing you need to understand is what Everest has become. This is no longer the mountain that Hillary and Tenzing climbed back in 1953. This isn't an expedition of daring explorers. It's an industry, commercial, streamlined, profitable. The Everest climbing season opens in the spring and the fall. They're called weather windows, brief periods when the winds die down, giving climbers a chance to push for the summit. During these few weeks, the slopes are packed with hundreds of people. You get lines at the fixed ropes, traffic jams on the narrow ridges. Climbers are literally standing still, waiting for the person in front of them to move. Sherpas rig the entire route with fixed ropes, all the way from base camp to the summit. These ropes are anchored into the mountain for the whole climb. You just clip your ascender onto the rope and start climbing. It's almost like an escalator, slow but steady. Camps are set up at different altitudes, and each one is stocked with tents, oxygen, and food. You move up in stages, climb for a day, rest for a day. It's all about acclimatization. It's all designed to look simple, safe, and that's the image the expedition companies sell you. Fixed ropes, bottled oxygen, an experienced Sherpa guide by your side, and all the logistics taken care of. All you have to do is be in good shape. Everything else seems to be handled for you, and people buy into it. Business executives looking to tick Everest off their bucket list. Doctors craving an adventure. Teachers who've saved up for years for this one trip. Amateur athletes trying to prove something to themselves. Ordinary people with an extraordinary dream. Subrata Ghosh was one of them. An Indian man, living a normal life, working a regular job. But he dreamed of Everest. He prepared. He trained. He saved his money. And he bought a spot on a commercial expedition, arriving in Nepal in the spring of 2025. Then there's Philip II Santiago. A similar story. He's from the Philippines. Also on a commercial expedition. Also chasing a dream. Also well prepared. They don't even know each other. They're in different groups, with different guides. But their fates are about to become intertwined. The acclimatization process goes according to plan. A climb up to Camp 1, then back down. A climb to Camp 2, then back down. The body slowly adapts to the altitude. The lungs learn to work in the thin air. The heart adjusts to the strain. This takes weeks. Grueling, tedious, but absolutely essential weeks. Finally, the weather window arrives. The forecast is good. The winds are dropping. The temperature climbs to minus 30 degrees Celsius, which, for Everest, is practically a heat wave. The teams begin their final push for the summit. They reach Camp 4, on the South Col. The altitude here is around 8,000 meters. This is where they enter the death zone. And that's not a metaphor. It's a medical term. Above 8,000 meters, the human body can no longer regenerate. It's only deteriorating. Brain cells die from oxygen deprivation. Muscles waste away. Organs are working on overdrive. Every hour spent in the death zone causes damage, irreversible damage. So the rule is simple. Spend as little time here as possible. Get to the top and get back down. Fast. Subrata makes it to Camp 4. He's feeling okay. Tired, of course, but that's to be expected. He rests in his tent, drinks some water, checks his gear. His oxygen bottle is full. The mask is working. He's ready to go. Philip is also at Camp 4, but he's already in trouble. He's exhausted. His breathing is labored, even with the supplemental oxygen. He tells his Sherpa, "I just need to rest. Just lie down for a bit. I'll get my strength back, and then I'll go." The summit push begins that night. The team set out around midnight. The goal is to reach the summit by sunrise, get a photo, and get down immediately, while it's still light out, while they still have the energy, and before the oxygen runs out. Subrata sets off with his group, slowly, step by step, darkness all around. The beam of a headlamp catches the back of the person ahead, and the fixed ropes underfoot. The cold cuts right through you. It's hard to breathe, even through the mask. But he keeps going because he's dreamed of this for years. Philip isn't coming out. He's staying in the tent. He says, "I can't. I'm too tired. I'll go later, or tomorrow." The Sherpa shakes his head, but he can't argue. The client makes the call. Subrata is climbing. The Hillary Step, a steep near-vertical rock face just a few dozen meters from the summit. It's the most technical part of the route. The fixed ropes here are especially crucial. People move slowly, carefully, across the section. Finally, the summit. 8,848 meters. The roof of the world. Subrata stands on top, the Indian flag in his hands. A photograph. A smile. The dream has come true. He's on Everest. He's done it. But the summit is only half the journey, not even half. Most people die on the way down. The statistics are ironclad. The ascent takes strength, but it gives you adrenaline. The descent, that's when the adrenaline is gone, your strength is fading, and the oxygen is running out. Subrata begins his descent. The first few meters go fine. Then, his head starts to spin. Worse than usual, his vision blurs. The fixed ropes seem to split in two. He blinks, tries to focus. It's no use. The Sherpa is right there. He sees the problem. He asks, "How are you?" Subrata replies, "Not good. I can't see straight. My head is spinning." The Sherpa understands the hypoxia is getting worse. The oxygen in his tank is running low, or the mask is failing. They need to get down, faster. But there is no fast. Subrata is moving slower and slower. Every step is an effort. His coordination is shot. He clings to the ropes with both hands, shuffling his feet. He stops, stands still, then takes another step, the Hillary Step, on the way down. There's a line here too, people slowly descending the steep section. Subrata waits, standing, swaying. The Sherpa holds him by the shoulder, trying to keep him on his feet. Finally, it's their turn. Subrata starts down, but halfway through he stops, just freezes. The Sherpa yells, "Move! We have to get down!" Subrata doesn't answer. He's just hanging on the ropes. His eyes are open, but his gaze is vacant. The Sherpa tries to help. He moves down beside him, pushes his client, pulls him down. Subrata takes a few more steps and stops again. A few more, another stop. They descend like this, meter by meter, agonizingly slow. The people in line are waiting, getting angry, but what can you do? You can't turn around on the fixed lines. You can't pass. You can only wait. Somewhere below the Hillary Step, Subrata stops for good. He sits down right on the slope, unclips himself from the ropes, leans back. The Sherpa grabs him, shakes him, yells. But Subrata doesn't respond. His eyes close. His breathing becomes shallow. At over 8,000 meters, you can't perform CPR. There's no air for rescue breaths, no strength for chest compressions. No way to evacuate someone. A dead weight on a steep slope is a death sentence for the rescuer, too. The Sherpa knows. It's over. He He stands beside him for a few minutes, checks for a pulse. Nothing. Subrata is dead, right here on the slopes of Everest, just a few hours after he stood on the summit, flag in hand, a smile on his face. Meanwhile, back at Camp 4, morning is breaking. Teams are returning from the summit, exhausted but alive, happy. They've done it. They've stood on top of the world. Someone peeks into Philip's tent, just to check on him. Maybe he's decided to head down. The tent is zipped shut. It's quiet inside. Too quiet. They open the flap. Philip is lying in his sleeping bag, motionless. A Sherpa touches him. He's cold. Checks for a pulse. Nothing. Philip is dead. He died during the night, while the others were pushing for the summit. He died in his tent, in his sleeping bag, peacefully. He just never woke up. His heart couldn't handle the altitude, or his brain shut down from hypoxia, or his lungs filled with fluid, high-altitude pulmonary edema. They don't perform autopsies at 8,000 meters. 2 men, 2 deaths, the same cause, the death zone. Subrata reached the summit and died on the way down. Philip never even started his summit push and died in his tent. But the result was the same. Everest claimed them both. The media reports the news. The first fatalities of the 2025 Everest season. The climbing community just shakes its head. Again. It's the same story every year. People go up. People die. The statistics don't change. The online debates begin. Some say commercial climbing is madness. Others argue that these are adults making their own choices. They know the risks. A third group contends that the Sherpas are overworked. They can't be expected to save every client. And they're all right, because modern Everest is a cocktail of contradictions. It's the highest mountain in the world, and the most accessible 8,000er. It's a place almost anyone can climb, but not everyone returns from. It's a place where people pay for a dream, and sometimes the price is more than just money, because at 8,000 meters, the body is operating at its absolute limit, and everyone's limit is different. Subrata didn't know his limit. Philip didn't know his. They only found out up there, at the top, where it's too late to fix a mistake. October 3rd, the eastern face of Everest. Hundreds of tourists are in camps at altitudes up to 4,900 meters. They've come here for Golden Week, the Chinese national holidays, trekking, beautiful views, taking photos with the world's highest mountain in the background. Then, the snow begins to fall. At first it seems normal. Snow in the mountains is to be expected. Light flakes, nothing to worry about. But after a few hours, the intensity picks up. The snow comes down thicker, harder. It doesn't stop. The night of October 3rd into the 4th. The snowfall intensifies. Tents begin to get buried. The trails disappear under a blanket of white. The wind picks up. The temperature drops. For hours, people hold up their tents with their own hands, trying to keep them from collapsing under the weight of the snow. The morning of October 4th, a full-blown blockade is formed. Hundreds of people are trapped in the high-altitude camps, with no way to get out on their own. One of the largest rescue operations of the season is about to begin. So, who are these people? They aren't mountaineers, not professionals pushing for the summit. They're ordinary tourists, trekkers. They were mostly Chinese citizens, in Tibet for the holiday week, to see Everest, to hike the scenic trails, to take some photos. They were in the Karma Valley and the areas around Everest's eastern wall, the Kangchenjunga face, at altitudes ranging from 4,200 to 4,900 meters. This isn't the death zone. We're talking about tourist routes, organized group tours, complete with local guides and support staff. These people came in hiking gear, with backpacks, with cameras. They weren't prepared for extreme conditions. They hadn't planned on getting trapped in a blizzard, and they certainly didn't expect to be fighting for their lives. At the time of the storm, there was only one professional team actually on Everest. They were higher up, on a different route. They weren't caught in the blockade. They made it down on their own. Everyone else who was trapped, they were tourists, not mountaineers. And that's a crucial distinction, because later the media would run headlines about 1,000 climbers on Everest. But that wasn't true. It was a distortion of the facts. Specialized mountaineering outlets would criticize this narrative. But by then, the sensational headlines had already gone global. The area where they were trapped was the eastern and northeastern side of Everest, the Karma Valley. This is the Everest Scenic Area, a tourist zone with established campsites and viewing platforms. It's a long way from the classic northern climbing route on Everest. The geography is completely different, but these areas have their own unique features. The local wind patterns create a snow trapping effect. When the snow starts to fall, it isn't blown away, it just settles and accumulates. The layers build up fast, very fast. The camps are high up, as high as 4,900 meters. At that altitude, the air is thin. The body just doesn't work as well. Hypothermia sets in faster. You get colder, quicker. You get tired, faster. You become disoriented more easily. October is usually considered a relatively stable period in the Himalayas. It's not the spring climbing season, and it's not the dead of winter. It's autumn. The weather is supposed to be manageable, and that's exactly why so many tourists were there. They were counting on good conditions, but the force of this storm was an anomaly. Meteorologists hadn't predicted this level of intensity. The snow just kept falling for a day, then 2, then 3. It blocked the roads, buried the trails. It turned the entire region into a snow trap with no way out on your own. October 3rd in the afternoon. The heavy snow started suddenly. The groups were already in their camps. Some had just arrived. Others were settling in for the night. Some were planning to hike out the next morning. In a matter of hours, all those plans fell apart. The night of October 3rd, going into the 4th, became a nightmare. The snow grew heavier with every passing hour. It started to bury the tents. The roofs began to sag under the weight. The fabric strained. The poles groaned. They knew that if their tent collapsed, they'd be buried alive, trapped under the snow, in the dark, in the freezing cold. So they went outside. For hours they held up the tents with their bare hands, shoveling away the snow, tightening the guy lines. They'd go back inside, only to repeat the whole process an hour later. Again and again. All night long. No sleep, no rest, just fear. The trails vanished. What started as a clear path in the morning, by evening, is just a flat, white expanse. It's impossible to tell where the trail is, where the slope begins, or where the cliff edge drops off. Every landmark has been wiped away. Morning, October 4th. The snow keeps falling, the wind picks up, and the temperature drops even further. A full-blown blockade is taking shape. Hundreds of people are stuck in high-altitude camps. Communication is spotty, food is limited, fuel is running out. People start calling for help, sending their coordinates, describing their condition. Authorities in the Tibet Autonomous Region sound the alarm. A rescue operation gets underway. October 5th. Rescuers and local residents start heading up the mountain. They're carrying warm clothes, food, and thermoses of hot tea. They're leading pack animals, yaks and horses. They're digging paths by hand through the deep snow. The first groups begin their descent. Around 350 people are led to the village of Kudang, the nearest settlement with any infrastructure. The people move in columns, slowly, carefully, testing every step. Rescuers lead from the front, locals support from the rear. No one can be left behind. But this is just the first wave. The rest are still waiting in snowed-in camps. By various estimates, anywhere from 200 to 500 more people are still trapped. The exact number is unknown. Not all the groups were officially registered. October 6th. The rescuers head back up. Again, they dig out the paths. Again, they form columns. And again, they lead people down. The work continues around the clock, day and night, through the blizzard, in the freezing cold, without stopping. October 7th. The last groups are evacuated. Rescuers check every camp, every tent, making sure no one is left. The operation is complete. Meanwhile, in parts of Nepal, on the southern side of the Himalayas, the same cyclone is causing floods and landslides. But that's a different geography, a different set of problems. It has nothing to do with the blockade near Everest. The media sometimes confuses these events, creating the impression of a single, massive catastrophe. But they were two separate incidents. The Tibetan authorities completely closed the Everest Scenic Area. They shut down the Jufeng Peak hiking area. All tourist access is forbidden. The snowpack is unstable. There's a risk of avalanches, a risk of new blockades. The area remains closed until the weather stabilizes. Official reports confirm all groups were evacuated. There are no confirmed deaths within the blockade zone. There were injuries, cases of hypothermia, frostbite, but there were no mass casualties. It was a controlled incident, not a catastrophe. Specialized mountaineering sources emphasize a key point. The people who were trapped were tourists, not climbers. The media ran headlines about 1,000 climbers on Everest. One climber's death was actually linked to the same cyclone, a Korean mountaineer on Mera Peak in Nepal, but that's a completely different place, a different mountain, a different story. It has no connection to the blockade on the eastern side of Everest. The main takeaway from this story is simple but important. A heavy snowfall can turn a tourist area into a death trap, even one that's far from any high-altitude climbing routes. And this isn't even extreme mountaineering. We're talking about people who just came to take in the incredible views. An altitude of 4,900 meters, that's not 8,000. It's not the death zone. In fact, it's an altitude where people actually live in some parts of the world. But when a blizzard hits, when the temperature plummets, when the trails vanish beneath the snow, that same altitude turns deadly. These were tourists here for a holiday week. They wanted to see Everest, snap some photos, make some incredible memories. Instead, they spent 3 days completely stranded, fighting to keep their tents from collapsing, waiting for rescuers, battling the cold and the fear. They weren't prepared for these kinds of extreme conditions. They had no mountain survival experience. They had no idea what to do in an emergency. And yet, they survived. Thanks to the rescuers, thanks to the local people, and thanks to a swift, well-organized evacuation. If this story got to you, hit the like button and let us know in the comments. What do you think was the most devastating tragedy of 2025? And is there a story we missed that you think belongs on this list?